This came in.
I didn't have that.
Theoretically, we could almost push
I
it
have
to
like
January, but I
sure.
know okay.
And I was gonna run out everything.
All right, sorry, last minute questions. We'll call the meeting to order, start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The board wants to provide ample opportunity for public comment on matters that come before us. Your input is important. If you wish to address an item already on the agenda, we ask that you do so when that item comes up for discussion. If you have a comment on a matter not on the agenda, this is the time during our meeting for such comments. The board would like to remind everyone in attendance that to avoid violations of individual rights of privacy, a member of the public wishing to address the board during this time will not be allowed to make comments about any student, staff member, or member of the general public. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? All right, do we have any recognition or correspondence?
We did not.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. Start with transportation update. Mr. Schindel and Mr. Rice together or separate, however that works.
Both of us. Well, I'll give a report on the buses that we have going now. Bus 3 did have an accident, tore a chunk out of the left rear fender right in front of the rear wheels. I've got an estimate coming from Top Gun Auto, hopefully soon, and then we can figure out what we want to do with that. I still have not heard from Missoula on bus 2. The last time I talked to them, they still can't get one fitting to weld together for some reason, so they're still working on that. Everything else I believe is working fine. I haven't heard anything on 5 or 1 either, so should be good.
Ed, the bus 3, is it primarily cosmetic? I looked at it there, it didn't look like there was any really bad structural damage, just some cosmetic scraping.
It's mostly cosmetic, but there is a brace in there, and I'm afraid that's kind of helping hold those boxes and stuff in place.
Okay.
And the brace did get bent and broke, so it would have to be fixed too, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I didn't know we had the piece. Now I found out later that we had the piece there, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, I got some information on a new bus. It's a new Freightliner. The Ultra Coach Liner DXL would be like, it would replace a coach. It's about the same size, height-wise and everything. So I got this information so we can look at that when we decide what we're doing.
Thank you.
And then I also have some more on another one. It's the newer version, like the one that we have with the truck cab in front and then the door behind. They both carry about the same number of passengers. They can be set up the same way. The only thing different between the DXL and the SE102 is the DXL has a bigger motor and the doors on the truck cab. It's built like the coaches are with the higher, they're up higher, just got a little more room underneath. But, so, just got this, we have the information, if we decide we can go to the new bus. Questions on that? Lead time, I talked with them when I got this stuff, and they said the longest one that they've had to build is 10 months. So if we order now, we could have it by the end of, by the school year next year.
We're still working on the smaller 14 or 15 passenger bus. Likely to figure it out that does not come out of the bus depreciation reserve. So we're still figuring out what you guys would be the solid number. I think what we've looked at is 20 to 25 is probably a decent number. We could buy a decent bus to serve those needs that we have. And they are available, they're out there. We did get one that was local here that we found, but it's wasn't good as these, so we did too much stuff with it. Ed looked at it, Susie looked at it, John did. It just was going to be too much. Did have chairlift on it too, but again, with that too, I don't know if Susie would know more about if we get one with a chairlift that can be used for sped stuff as well. There might be that funding coming from someplace else there, but I think that 2025 range would be good for getting that bus up and going for us. So that's that. What else is on your list that for transportation?
Those were the main parts. Both Jeremy and Ed helped review the proposal for the subdivision. That's later on the agenda, so we'll hit that in a bit. But if you have any comments to make on that, and I think that was it, just making sure we understood what our priorities are if we're shopping for new coach buses and willing to wait that wait time, or if we were going to try to look for something used, and then if the sped bus was still a priority or not. Right now, the one we have is working and running. It's not in great shape. We don't have, a ton of need for that, but there could be in the future. So just kind of some planning for that and direction on which way we want to go. So it seems to be the top priority is the coach bus, as we've decided that, Bulldog Bus Lines has agreed to help with field trips. So that resolved that issue.
Yeah, and I think I'm looking at my notes. I don't remember when we had a special meeting, but as of right now, we've done about just over 400 miles donated back with those field trips with the school buses. So that's where we're at with that. So.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
No, that's good. With the buses too, I sent you guys an email as well. I have the coach bus of mine that I purchased in March, realizing that I probably don't need to have that in my fleet this time with my business. So I'm looking to get rid of that one. I don't need to make any money off of it. It is a really good bus. I've seen it and whatnot. It's lived on it, everything else. If you guys had decided or wanted to look at that to move forward and then get the new bus and replace the Van Hool, something of that nature as well. It's here, it's ready to go. We've used it for speech and drama in the middle school basketball quite a bit. It fits everybody, same 57 passenger with all that. So something to consider as well for you guys. That way we could get one more into our fleet because we have had to use it since number 2 has been gone. I have pulled that in instead of using Keeley for some of those things, which is nice to use there. So, if there's more questions about that, we can address. But you want to talk about sped stuff too? Are we good with that? Mileage and all that contract?
I think we're good, unless you have more to add. For 5th day transportation, we also had an email going around, and I don't know if you have any further questions while we're on that. We have 3 to 5 kids on the one route, but there has been some great field trips and plans for more field trips this spring and summer. And Jeremy has been willing with Bulldog Bus Lines to transfer those miles that we had negotiated for the 5th day busing to the field trips rather than the route trips that are not being used or needed. If the board feels comfortable in keeping it in that direction, or if you think we need to revisit it.
Jeremy and I visited earlier about that, and it's something that right now it's just the one route that we have kids on. And we can definitely put it out there that if families are needing transportation on one of those other routes, that they can just reach out to me, and then we would just communicate that transportation need if it's needed at that time.
Is that, does the 21st Century Grant allow for us to shift
those miles?
It's just transportation, so there's nothing set as far as getting them to, it's just transportation set, so it's field trips work, transportation to it, so it's, yeah, it's not locked in though.
Yeah, it's not like the regular to and from home,
Yeah, I
that
just didn't know
routes
how
that we
much
have to
grant
file with the
like
state.
It was more confined, right?
Yeah, good question.
So we're looking at halting those other 2 routes and just keeping the one for right now, is that?
That's what we discussed.
Yeah, so the contract says 100 miles a day for the 30 days, which are the 3 Fridays. So if we move, we haven't had anything on Canyon Ferry or Bunkhouse. So if we move to just the Winston route, it's 26 miles a day. So then we could just do that on there and then bank the rest of those miles for the spring when we have one of those field trips coming through. So we're not burning through all that mileage, just taking the bus out and waiting and coming back in. So when we're done, I think, yeah, we're done for this year, 2023. So we don't have anything Friday or next Friday. So we're sitting right at 1,257 miles for 21st century grant as of this date. So there's 1,700 and change left.
And Jeremy and I are constant contact, so it's pretty easy for us to, if someone did reach out and say we needed it. Because we've also been running the sped bus, it's not just the regular route. The sped bus has been run on fit day as well.
So what do you need from us?
Just letting you know, I know that you guys have been interested in the past on how that busing is working, on how many students were utilizing the transportation on 5th day. So what we've identified is the one route and the sped bus is being requested.
But yeah, best utilizing those miles in the best way possible, I think it's the right route to go. Like I said, there's no sense starting a bus and running around there for no reason. So if we can use those for more appropriate things, then I support
I
that.
think it was good to give it a few months to kind of see and get everyone into a routine, but now we're in a pretty good routine now.
Appreciate your flexibility on that.
Yeah, no problem. So, I've gotten a lot of calls personally lately with the business of people looking for buses. So I don't know how the school works on getting rid of the old buses, but a lot of people are looking to retrofit older buses. So for the schooling type things, they change in motorhomes. So Peely or the yellow bus, if that's no longer needed with the school instead of sitting, I don't know if that's something that's worth the school looking at to, I don't know how the procurement process works of getting it moved out. So just food for thought there to get some extra income coming through there.
So my understanding is that we replace one bus with another, right? So if we find a special ed bus that we think is a good fit, we can replace the yellow bus that we currently have with a special ed bus and make that trade out. And then we can sell or trade in the bus that we're trading out for the new bus. So it kind of needs to be a swap from what I understand of that. I know there's people love Peely, Mr. Schendel especially, and it's very reliable. I know that it also isn't the prettiest thing, so some folks don't love it when we utilize Peely. So I'm not sure where the board, or Ed and Jeremy want to go with Peely. I know that Mr. Odell and many others have dibs on it if we're ever going to be getting rid of it.
They're gonna
So,
retrofit it into it.
That's where we are with that. I do think the yellow bus, if we're not utilizing it and it's not serving a purpose, that if we find a good replacement or something good to swap it out with, that'd be the one.
Suzie, does it have to be a bus for a bus, or so we can't finagle a 15-passenger thing for an old bus? Or
No.
It's got to be completely separate.
Yep, the Class E, like it has to be under the different classifications of buses.
Okay.
So the one that we did look at did qualify because as long as it was 10 passengers and it had the wheelchair lift.
Right.
So that one, however, it didn't drive well and those kinds of things. So I didn't bring it to the board.
Honestly, doesn't fit our needs either.
But if that was a step up if it would have been a better bus opportunity, if it drove better and those kinds of things, and we felt like it was a step up from our current sped bus, we could have traded it out for the current sped bus or the yellow bus
As
and
long as
had
we
both.
didn't drive it in the wind, it wasn't a problem.
Exactly.
The wind never blows around.
Wind never blows around here. Yeah.
So yeah, we could have traded it out for the yellow bus and then had that and the sped bus was one thing we were considering if it would have been an option we really wanted, but it didn't turn out.
So I guess my recommendation is, whether we kick this back to the transportation committee or whether we send it to a board work session where we really put a focus on budget, but I think that's where it needs to start. We need to look at where the budget is and what our priority is and what flexibility we have and have a meeting that just focuses on that. Obviously, we're not prepared tonight to make a decision on, which bus, but so I think that's the next step. So whether we call it a budget meeting or a transportation meeting, but I think there needs to be some focus on the numbers, but I know we have a number of things that are going into that budget too that all have to be considered before we decide we're going to buy.
Especially the 14 to 15 passenger. The coach bus, really, we just need a decision made on whether you guys want to go with new or used. We have the funds. We have a healthy bus depreciation fund. So as far as the other one goes, that would come out of one of our other funds or general fund. That would have to be part of a larger budget discussion.
Are there a lot of the used Freightliners?
There are no use.
They're fairly new.
They're fairly.
Yeah, they are.
New design, so that's what a lot of schools are going with. So
We had the one that we've got was one of the first ones that came out of this.
All right, thank you.
So yeah, at some point, I guess we just need to decide how we're going to do that and pick a time. Obviously sooner than later, but probably not before the end of the year, but sometime in January.
Set a transportation committee meeting, sounds like.
Okay, any other questions, comments on transportation? Okay, moving on to the high school baseball discussion.
So as we've talked about, there are many components to think about. It has been pretty well agreed and decided that there's not a way to make it happen for 2024. And so, since the beginning, we've been talking about, could we make this happen for 2025? And that was, I know Mr. Bowman's initial intent, we didn't even realize at that time that MHSA was still accepting teams for 2024. So as we look to 2025, Chairman Noyes created this sheet about student impact, district impact, facilities and personnel. And so those are some considerations that we're looking at. We do have some of the information on that, but we'll make sure we get all the questions answered. And we're just wondering if anyone had any further questions or considerations that needed to be added to that sheet. As we utilize that as a tool to make our decision. A couple of other pieces to the puzzle include city council. So we are on the agenda for the 19th to talk about what we found out, because we were asked to report back to them on the field use. So we'll go to that meeting and report back on the field use and see if they would be comfortable with us potentially utilizing it in the future for Fridays and Saturdays, as the other teams are not. And then still multiple components, which are also in the sheet, but considering of practice locations. I did put the information in about how Missoula did it, where they did set fundraising milestones that must be met if they're going to launch in 2025. However, I did agree with Mr. Viley's comments about, if it is something we're going to do, we should do it in the right way, with the board being able to fund a high quality program. So just making sure that the board has all the options and information about how other districts are doing this. The budget updates we have a lot of budget discussion to be had. It's not something we can simply say we do or don't have the funding for that, because it's all a matter of priority and where you're choosing to put funds toward. So in January, we will have more information and updates on budget, where we need to get into the weeds, and I'd like to get into detail on the budget with you guys so we can make those kinds of decisions for the future. And I think that's where we're at with baseball. My recommendation is that, obviously we've had a lot of interest in it. We need to keep having this discussion. We do also at some point need to make a decision. So I think we need to have that detailed budget meeting and get the answers to all the questions before we can move forward. And
Sorry, are these questions are gonna be answered in a budget meeting, or is this gonna be brought to administration, or how are we answering these questions?
Multiple, I guess.
Okay.
Some of these we have answered already. Some of them will come from the administration, some will come from the budget. Some of them are gonna have to come from, I'm gonna say Mr. Bowman and the supporters that are, working on this, that have been talking about, we can, we have fields that we can practice on. We need to know, okay, do we have fields? Where are they? How is that gonna impact? How are we gonna get kids from here to there? And the city, getting the city to commit to, yes, you guys can play games on those fields. We need something significant, whether it's a letter of intent. Eventually, it probably needs to be an MOU. So there's different components of it. My question to you is did I leave anything out? Is there anything else that we need to add to this so that we can make an informed decision? And secondly, the date. Is March the appropriate time? Do we April, February? I just put March on there as an example. But I think we do need to set a date that we are going to make a decision.
So a couple things with that is, I think it's important is we have a person assigned or someone assigned to, so we know exactly who's supposed to be getting us that particular question answered. So there's no confusion. So we don't get here in March and we do this. Well, I thought he was doing, I thought she was doing. I think that's very wise. Basically a troop to task for each one of these questions. The other thing too is with baseball being so new in our area, we need to have a good idea of how much it's going to cost for the umpires to come, because is it Butte that they're going to be traveling from? Helena, where is the umpire pool and what's that cost? Because if they do come from Butte, that's going to be a lot more expensive than coming from Helena per se, and that'll affect the cost going in there. So those are two things I had for you.
Yeah, I guess I was wondering, are we gonna have a special meeting or work session for this, or how are we gonna make sure we get through all these questions?
I guess in my mind, it's up to those that are pushing for the program to bring the plan to the board. The board needs a plan to make a decision. So I don't think it's the board's responsibility to come up with a plan. I think they need a plan to look at to make a decision.
so I know Mr. Bowman has a lot of the answers to a lot of these questions, and him and I talked about quite a few of them already since you have sent this out. And, but obviously we need some more information from the city and other folks who might be willing to allow their fields to be used and those kinds of things. So I do agree with assigning roles and getting it determined who's going to provide which information, and that we're all on the same page so that we don't have conflicting information when that time comes, right? So maybe an activities committee meeting, if you guys would like to have this go through the activities committee meeting before it's brought to the full board to be worked on. And then I know we could ask Mr. Bowman and the Blileys and maybe some other folks to help with that as well. And I will have the budget details that the board needs if you would like to do that. I think there's so much that goes into the budget meeting and to looking at a budget projection that there's no way I could do it in a regular board meeting. I think we need to set a special meeting, or I need to provide the information through individual meetings with you guys or an email or something like that. There's a lot that's gone into it. I have spent a lot of time with Pam and Casey on it and the administrators. And yeah, I could spend all night talking about budget projection for next year.
So remind me, is it by the end of the year, or is it the end of this school year that we have to? I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out the deadline. This is just to move forward, but when is our final, yes, we're gonna do it with MHSA?
In the spring, we notify them of which.
This spring for next.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I don't have that exact date off the top of my head. So I think if we could get as much work done by February as possible, that would be a good goal. I know everyone also wants, to know whether we're going to keep moving forward or not before.
So how about we set a meeting in January 1st, so we'll find out what questions we have answered at that point in time. We'll have information from the December 19th meeting. Take a pulse at that time and then shoot for more of a formalized meeting February rehearsal per se before we take it bring it to the board.
For like an activities committee?
Yeah.
So in January, we will assign duties and revisit it in February.
No, I would assign those. I mean, I think this should be self-explanatory, I would think.
Yes.
If there's any questions on who's responsible for the question, have them get a hold of you.
Okay.
And if you can't figure out, let Vanessa or I know about it, and then we'll assign whoever's responsible for that.
And then in February, you'd like to have a follow-up to make sure
Yeah.
everything, we have a complete baseball proposal to come before the board.
Yeah, January, I'd like to see all the answers we have up until that point. So that way we can refine it and then move for February for a final presentation that we can revise, and then March will be how's that sound?
Yep.
Does that sound all right?
Great.
You guys do anything?
No, not necessarily. I just want to make sure that everybody's got the buy-in. You guys all have questions and access to that questions too, right? And it's not just our decision. It's administrators and staff and whoever wants to add to it or subtract from it, or even, I know there's some interest from other coaches, spring sport coaches that may be involved in some of those meetings coming up too, to help provide some perspective. So just that everybody's all eyes open.
Yeah, it needs to be all inclusive. Okay. All right, thank you. School Resource Officer Program.
So we looked at a lot of, and by we, I mean Sherry Hebron and Nick Rouser and I are doing work on this School Resource Officer Program, and as well as everyone else. But we've been working on looking and reviewing MOUs from other districts that have SROs, as well as best practices, job descriptions, and those kinds of things, and just having those great conversations about what's working, what's not worked. So we did have a MOU draft from MTSBA that we felt like had good bones and structure, and it's already been approved by our attorneys, and we felt like it would fit the needs, so I included that in here. And then also the policy that we would need to have for the SRO policy 4411 is included in this packet with the baseball on the front sheet, kind of your additional detailed documents that were presented today, not in the packet. And Sheriff Rouser, Sherry and I met at 2:00 today. He's supposed to find out tomorrow if the position is approved, which he is hopeful for. And we talked about office locations, and we need to talk as an admin team about those potential office locations. We were awarded the targeted grant, and it does have funding in it to pay for the SRO, some of the SRO training that would need to occur this summer. And so the plan is to bring the MOU and the proposal to the board in January and start that position.
I think that also gives us time to look at the one, LU that we were looking at here, because we obviously just got this today too, so we need time to review it and look at it and say, yeah, that doesn't really fit our district, but this does, and what else we need to add, and what is, what is appropriate and what's not. So this is just a template, it's just a draft for us to start somewhere from.
Right.
I don't know if it's in here, I haven't looked, but just so that Sheriff Rouser and the district are aware of like roles and responsibilities when it comes to just open communication, right? So what I'm thinking of is like issues that arise, making sure, because you're really having two supervisors, right? So it's a sheriff's office deputy, but yet we still have to have involvement in that process. So review, quarterly check-ins, weekly check-ins.
I think it was, there was something in here that
And the sheriff, just so that communication is going well between both entities and they're not,
Right.
but the officer that's hired isn't confused on what they're supposed to do and who they gotta report to.
Yes, and the annual.
extensive.
Yeah, and the annual review, there's definitely, between the policy and the MOU, I think it does pretty well outline. It does say, when the superintendent needs to be notified or brought in, which level of discipline the SRO gets involved in. And so, yeah, we did, and Sheriff Rouser did feel like it spelled those things out pretty well.
So we all need a little bit more time to really look at it.
Yeah. So we're excited that that's in the works, and hopefully we can have an SRO upon your approval in January if you feel like we're ready to go. And it's approved for Mr. Rouser.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, moving on, the radio station.
Okay, so I do have a future meeting that's planned with Debbie Randolph. She's offered to be very helpful and supportive in this. Ken Franks is also interested in the technical side and understanding kind of the operations and where it's housed and seeing if he could be of any help with his radio background and experience. And Luke Carr with his knowledge of the radio. So we all have a meeting in a week to get together. But since then, we've had some great things happen. We were able to launch the radio today, and I sent you guys out that information. We are now able to host here at the school. I know Mr. Rock was probably excited to hear that because last week, it was challenging earlier. He had some things ready to broadcast, and we weren't able to broadcast them because of the disconnect and us being able to put our own things on the radio. So we were able to get that up and running. And so we're excited about that. And the survey is out. It's online. It's going to be printed in paper. There's going to be hard copies at the library, as well as the capability for people to come into the library and take the radio survey in the library. So we're thankful and hopeful. I believe the newspapers are planning to print it on Friday. And we'll also be putting plugs on the radio station, letting the listeners know to please fill out the survey, either at the school, out of the newspaper, or online. And we've already had quite a few people responding. So we will let that occur for a while. And so we can get as much input as we can. And we did ask for interest in advertising or organization supporting. I know the Rotary offered to be a supporter of the radio, for example. So we'll see which other organizations and businesses might be willing to step up and support and contribute to that. And we'll also find out if people are interested in utilizing it for other reasons. And now hopefully have the capability to do so.
Have we touched base with the Raw Water Community Foundation?
I am not sure if we have specifically touched base with them yet.
I think they might be interested in supporting as well.
Okay.
So that's another good one. Community outreach there, so. BCDC, were they?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
and that's why I think the community foundation is at least aware of it just because of the overlap of people there.
I think they're waiting to be.
But I know BC too, so BC.
Okay, do a personal reach out.
Sent out emails regarding the survey specifically on it.
Suzie, you mentioned it'll run for a while. Do you have an end date that we can say this is the end of it?
Yes.
It
I-
was, but I don't know.
Well,
It was on the notes, but I was gonna let it run through January just because of the holidays and the crunch time. And so we could meet, so hopefully we'll have all time then to compile all the information and share at the February board meeting.
I just was looking for a decision date. as
Yeah,
part
I
of next year's
agree. I
budget.
think we need to pick a date that we're gonna make this decision, prior to, setting next year's budget, obviously, and whether to include it or not include it. But with that in mind, we also have requirements in that license and agreement that we have to give so much time before we, pull the plug, so to speak, on it. So I agree. I think at some point we got to set a date that this is when we're going to make this decision.
Yeah, it seemed rushed to try to compile all the information, I know we want to let people have time with the survey, especially since it might be one where we need people drifting in, to the library to take it if they're listeners and hearing about it that way and not online. We're really trying to reach those people, so wanted to give it more time, and it felt too rushed for January. So, but I think February would be a good time to have it on the agenda to make a decision or a final plan.
Go back to the, I guess they could attend that meeting if that's the goal, right? Because we had a special meeting to start the discussion. I didn't know if there was a need for. I guess you can present.
Plan
that
for another radio
that
meeting.
during the regular meeting, but it just could get a little bit large.
I think let's see maybe what we get out of the survey, and then we can determine, whether we need to set a special meeting to deal with it independently.
Jeremy Moyes, Nancy Marks from the paper. I just wanted to correct Superintendent there. We tried to print the survey within the body of the paper, but the format just wouldn't allow it. So we just put a link and then we put it on our website
Okay,
and our Facebook. I'm sorry.
that's okay. Thank
It
you.
didn't work. Yeah.
Okay.
Number two, I thought of some other places to be looking for grants. The Tracy Foundation, you know what the Tracy Foundation is? That's a good fit for them. And then what about Canyon Ferry Trust? I don't know. I've never worked with them, so I don't know.
Their focus is on recreation in Broadwater County. So
Well,
they've been in discussion, I
gotta
know, on
stretch it a
the
little.
baseball, but
Listen to it while you're running.
Mr. Giffen.
Would you like to set a hard and fast date on the end of the survey?
I was
I put a date
I
on
thought
the,
she
Is
did.
there a
Yes.
date on- Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
I was thinking it was on one of the emails.
yeah, it should be on the, I don't know if it's on the website, on the paragraph about
I want
the,
to say it was the end of January.
yeah, it was January 31st possibly.
Right this second.
I think it might be January, now I'm remembering, pretty sure
And
it's
that
January
post, did it also
31st.
say that it was available at the library or no?
Yes.
Yes, it did. Okay, good. I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
And I can also, since we do have some time, maybe work with you to get a version that could be in a cutout.
A different format.
Yeah, we could work on that together.
I don't see it on the form.
I know it's not on the survey form,
Okay,
but I was hoping that it was included. Maybe that's important to get that paragraph of the details about the survey.
we can touch base on it.
Okay, thank you.
You said that meeting with the group was next week, is that right? With Debbie and?
Yes, we were just emailing later this afternoon we've had some dates. A hard time getting dates together because they've had Mako and those different things. So we're just trying to finalize a date
Okay.
for next week. We were just emailing before the meeting.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the radio? Okay, thank you. Library board update.
So the library interlocal agreement has been in the process of being updated, and there are a few points of consideration that the attorneys are going back and forth on. And I had a meeting with our attorney in regards to the interlocal agreement and some of their recommendations today. So I forwarded those on to you as a board, some of those notes, and then some of my more specific detailed notes I did send to the library board. And so we have more conversations to be had, and some more details that we need to look through before we're ready to bring the interlocal agreement to the board for a vote. There is also a question on whether or not the interlocal agreement needs to be decided in a joint meeting or can be approved individually by the school board. Questions? It is,
How
Oh.
far out are you thinking that, so we can have an agreement in place?
well, it depends on the state of the if you look at section C, number 4, it references a contract. Did you find out, Angie, if we have a contract in place?
Okay, so, in that section, it was kind of understood, and that's part of the reason why we were trying to revamp it, because we wanted it to reflect better currently what we were doing rather than something that wasn't being fulfilled in that. But that particular area, it really should read instead, and that's why we needed to kind of get together as a group for wording. It should say the Broadwater School and Community Library trustees, Board of Trustees will have the school district manage personnel, financials, blah, blah, blah. It currently says that they will contract with them. There is not a contract. It was just the wording was made to indicate it was a contract. They're just saying that they are contracting with the school to fulfill these obligations, and that's probably how the wording should have been said.
Okay,
Broadwater School and Community Library will have the school district manage personnel, finances, blah, 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 and take the word contract out.
okay,
There's not a physical contract. It was a way of saying we're giving the responsibility to the school to do these things. And so that was part of what I was trying to do originally when I was trying to edit the interlocal agreement that's been in the process for quite some time, was trying to work some of the wording out to make it reflect more of what we were doing and to be more clear.
okay. So he was worried about it saying contract and not having a copy of a contract. And if there isn't a contract, there are a few more things that do need to be added. There is also some work to be done on policy alignment and the roles and responsibilities. So we have to make sure that if the library board has policies, that they don't negate or they're not different than conflicting, thank you, with our district policies. So we need to make sure, for example, the one that was brought up was like patrons, like conduct of patrons in the library. We need to make sure that the same language is used for conduct of patrons at school, like visitors, for example. So there's a lot of alignment to be done there. And we need to make sure that the library board's policies align with our school board policies and don't have conflict. So I believe there's a bit more work to be done. Today was the attorney's first opportunity to review it with me. There wasn't major issues, but there is some work to be done. And I don't know when's the next library board meeting?
January 6th, I believe.
Okay, so that'll be a chance to talk about some of that. But it'll probably take at least one more library board meeting before we can get some of these things clarified, and we need to get the policies
Well,
to the
the other thing
attorneys.
to take into consideration too, we have not gotten a copy from the county either. The revisions were done with you and I, and then we haven't got it back. What's in this is my edits with a determination of who is supposed to sign a contract. So they haven't signed it, so I'm not really sure what the protocol is for if we find things in it, do we edit it ourselves and then give it back to them? Or, I don't know.
Yeah, who's the last to sign on that?
I think that's what Chris Gross was alluding to, is that technically it should be a joint, separate meeting that's joint of the signers, approving it, finalizing it. So, there is,
But at this point, the county has sent it to us, is that correct?
What has happened was I sent a copy to the county then kept it for a long period of time, did nothing, and then they said, okay, let's get together, this is our ideas. Susie and I met with them, they edited it, then they sent it to me, that is then my edited copy, what you saw, and they were going to take it to their people and sign it.
So at this point, my thoughts are that we need to make those changes or those edits that you guys have already discussed and potentially further, with the library board, and send it back and see if they're still willing to sign it at that point.
correct.
Yeah.
And we have to get the policies all sent to the attorney. MTSBA definitely felt like from the school side, there's a lot more work, or not a lot, but there's areas we need to continue working on.
It's like a lot of things that got done a long time ago. We did it on a handshake and a nod, and everybody figured everybody was gonna play nice from now till eternity. And not that anybody's not playing nice, but I think we're in a different place where we have to have things better spelled out than we did.
So on that, I have a question. So reading this, it talks about Broadwater School, Townsend School District. It's like our name is in there in two different fashions, and it's confusing as far as why it's got Broadwater School in some places and Townsend School in others.
We do
Maybe
that
they were
all
just
the time.
combining Broadwater County and.
Yeah, there's definitely, and as you can see, you have a rough draft that's written on. So there's definitely a lot of that kind of work that needs to be done. So,
Well, the other thing to take into consideration too is there's a lot of Montana code annotated that deals directly with library boards as well, that we have to be aware that we're keeping that in there as well and following those in addition to the others.
mhm. And it is very unique. The school community libraries, aren't very many left. They do pose a lot of challenges in having that kind of collaborative format. So there aren't very many left. So it does get technical, and even the structure of the board members, the makeup of the board, Chris thinks we need to take a look at. Right now it has 3 county appointed and 2 school appointed members, and there was some concern with that, with the school district having, like, as we pointed out in number 4, a lot of skin in the game, I guess, right? And a lot of roles. So then should it be a balanced board was one of the things that we talked about today, that was emailed out to you guys. So there's quite a few components.
It can't be according to MCA, it has to be 5.
Right, so he said that one of the members should be duly appointed.
And that's kind of,
So basic question, Broward County pays the district for use of the building, is that correct? Is there other costs associated? I mean, is it a break-even situation, or is it costing us money to run that library, even with the reimbursement from the county?
We could look into the library budget. We split a lot of it pretty evenly. They do pay for a portion of the phone, printer, though they pay for the county librarians that work in the after-school hours. But as far as like custodial and all of that, I'd have to take a closer look to see if we're at break even or not.
What about like the heat and utilities? Do they reimburse us for part of those costs too, do you know, or?
I do the
Yeah.
budgets thus far, and I have talked to Casey and Pam in the past about divvying up more costs to the county for things like that. We've slowly added things to the budget as time goes on, like more for printers and things like that. But we have not asked for costs over, there's so many dedicated mills that we deal with that are already ours, and we legally fought for those mills. And so we keep it pretty close and try to make it as fair as possible. So the county pays for certain things totally. The school pays for the building and the maintenance and the custodian totally.
Okay, well, thank you. And those reimbursement funds go into the general fund, is that correct?
Well, the percentage is, there's an interlocal agreement, which is the 282 that you'll see on some reports, and then there are general fund items too. So you'll see it both places, 282 and 201.
Okay, thank you.
And that's another item to be part of the larger budget discussion, as you can see. So, yeah, I definitely need more time with the interlocal agreement and the library board to work on some of those, that advice that we just received today. And the other component, there was one item, for example, the ALA, American Library Association membership. The state dropped their membership with them due to controversy. Chris Goss did confirm that the Bill of Rights, the ALA information, that is not controversial. The new president of the ALA has made some controversial statements in the past, and that's why some folks have dropped membership. And that is one item that I know the library board has been in discussion about and has had a vote on. And it was under question if the library board has the authority to be a member with that association individually of the school district's decision. And Chris Goss did say that for the non-student portion of the library in the evenings, that the library board could make a decision to be a member of that. But if they needed, to meet again on that with all the information presented. They could choose to revisit that. So that's where we're at on the library board. So because it does take quite a bit when we have to send something like that off to legal and like the policy alignment, I mean, let's hope it doesn't take anywhere near as long as we spent on our policy updates that we did a year, over a year. But I'm not expecting that length of time, but it might take a couple more months before we have things in good shape to bring to the board. Sent something off to get a few questions answered and found out we had a lot more.
Got more questions?
Got a lot more questions we need to answer.
Okay.
Thank you from the library board, those of you, for being here tonight.
Any other questions, comments on that update? Okay.
I would just want to say real quick that if you need specifics, the board is given a spreadsheet every year in the spring when they vote on the budgets and stuff like that. If you need more specifics from the school board, I'd be happy to share those.
I believe we saw a copy of that. We should have that.
Yeah, I can forward it.
All right, moving on, consent action items, minutes and warrants. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes for the November 6, 2023. 2023 special board radio meeting, November 14th, 2023 regular board meeting, and November 30th, 2023 special board grant meeting as presented. And don't mistakes.
Yeah.
And the warrants as presented. That almost needs extra minutes in itself.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And moved and seconded to approve the minutes and warrants as presented.
I do have a question on the warrants though for the discussion part. When was the last time we shopped our internet service provider? Yes.
We do that, so the internet services, we apply through the E-rate program, and we can only do that every, I believe, 5 years. And so we're on a 5-year, we're in the middle of basically our current cycle with our current provider, and we've now had for, this is gonna be our second over 5 years, so we're gonna, at the end of this term, we'll been with them for 10 years.
So you're saying we have we're locked in for 3 more
I
years?
believe it's 3 more years now. I have to double check on that, Chase. Off the top of my head, that's what I believe it is. It's 3 more.
I just recently we transferred over to Spectrum and they're getting really competitive and
I can visit with you further on this, Chase. There's, when we went through this originally, we only had one option, and that's who we ended up going with. And then this last time when we went through bidding, we had several options, and Montana Internet, which is who currently provides this service, was by far less expensive than anybody else. And we do have some agreements with them too that help to offset the cost as well. And then our E-rate covers a very large percentage of our internet costs.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Any other discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed. Action items, approved 21st century program MOU to Stoke, the pottery program.
We are going to table that tonight, please, Mr. Chairman. There's still some details that are being worked out.
Okay. Approve the safety and communication application.
So attached in your packet, you have the emergent 3 information. They are offering a discount if we subscribe before the end of the year. However, there were also some other platforms that were being looked at that Joe Gill did some research on for us. And they were more for communication as a whole. The emergent 3 is specifically for intensive emergencies and is a communication tool that works between staff and the sheriff's office or whoever else you choose to have on there. The pros are that it has a GPS and mapping capabilities. So you could click like there's an emergency in the library, and everyone would be able to see that. It would be on personal phones, which I know there's been some concern about, and or desktops. So I guess the pros to me, I've heard good things about it. I've heard the good and the bad from the schools that are using it, but I think it's always good to hear from our neighboring districts and something that is being used by other schools in Montana and is, if they are practicing with it and using it in drills, they seem to be having good success with it, and they feel like they're more prepared and more able to handle those situations when they occur. They have communication amongst each other. And the price is very competitive, and we would be able to pay for it out of the SR3 based technology. And I just like the thought of having a way to communicate what's happening and where without it going over our whole entire intercom system, if we do have an emergency going on at the school. Also, there's a chat messaging board where, the special ed teacher could say, I have Bob and Joe, so that Miss Bliley and Miss Gravely know, that they're somewhere, they're with an adult, they're safe and accounted for if they're missing when we go outside. Even like for fire drills, Christina, Sherry, Brad can text me all clear on that message board. We can put that it's a drill on the board, those kinds of things. So it's just a tool that I think has a lot of good points and is being used throughout the state. We haven't, had real thorough demo with it or had a lot of input from teachers on it at this point. So I guess those are the downsides. I don't know if it's worth trying to move forward on it right now and save the $500, or we need to have more conversations about it and get more input and more buy-in from folks before we launch it. I know Ms. Hartman brought up some good questions, like what if people don't have their location services on, or just some of those different technical components. I did ask Joe and Luke to look at it, and I don't know if they've had enough time to talk to the company to feel comfortable with the platform of it. We do have February 9th set aside for all-day safety, and I was hoping that we'd have something in place we could do some training on that day. But I just don't know if we're there yet. So I'd be interested to hear thoughts. Like I said, it just makes me, I feel like it would be good to have something in place for these situations where we could communicate and know what was happening and where it was happening. Because as we've been trained in all of our recent safety training and our threat assessment, the top priority is for folks to flee if they're able. And if you don't know where the situation or the threat is, you don't know if you're safe to flee or which direction to flee.
Is this your
So,
recommendation? Version 3, this is the same one we talked about here.
yeah, we had a brief demonstration at the meeting. So I don't know if any of the teachers in the room have any input or anybody else, but, you know, and if it's something we need to wait on, but I think that I would feel more comfortable if we had something in place where we were able to communicate better rather than over an intercom announcement if there is an emergency. And we did talk to Sheriff Rouser about it, and he had some ideas. When Sherry and I met with him today about, you know, the SRO having it on their phone and which deputies would, and even, you know, they could let us know if there is a threat, like at Town Pump or a hostile traffic stop on one of the side streets or something like that. And so it's kind of nice to have the map of what's going on, where it's going on, and being able to respond.
I think one of the questions I had after we had talked was, is there, and you just kind of mentioned it, is there PD and training available, like with the purchase of it? Do they provide training? Like they would come in and train our staff and us and all of that, so.
I don't know the answer to that. That's a great question. I didn't ask him about the training. I know he did cover, I'm trying to remember what he said when we had that demo that day. I do know, it says, let me find it in my packet. I do know they come in and do the mapping.
I think Christina just found it. She said there's a little thing in the.
There's a pure quote for $500 for onboarding and setup trainings, implementation and setup fees.
Okay. Which
I wonder what that detailed. Obviously, it'd be nice to have somebody who knows the have to train us.
Right. And the demos I've gotten at my superintendent training were from local superintendents that are utilizing it.
Districts.
Yeah, like Manhattan has it, for example, when they had the major potential threat that we had multiple schools hit with last year, they realized that they had a breakdown in communication and really struggled through that day. And that's when they decided to adopt this software. Schools.
Did someone have something out here on that? No? Okay. Sorry, I thought I heard someone speak.
Yeah, so, you know, I did talk to Hardin. They said, yeah, we have it. We didn't ever really get trained in it or use it. And then we had something happen and nobody really used it. But then the superintendents and principals I talked to that have used it even like on their fire drills just to get everybody in that process. And in practices, you know, we can practice a lockdown drill with this is where the threat is, you know, everyone from our training then should know who locks down and who flees. And if not, we can be making sure we're putting it on there. And the sheriff, you know, can be saying, I'm coming around the corner or whatever.
I'd like to move to approve the Emergent 3 service agreement contract as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Emergent 3 service contract as presented. Is there any discussion?
I've got a lot of things to talk about. So first off, are we trying to replace the communications tools that we have with an app? I mean, specifically like Dojo, or are we going to get away from that and go to this? Is that what we're looking for? Because you're looking at like 3 different things here, right? You've got one safety focused only.
Right.
Doesn't seem to have those other features. We've got other ones that are cost more, but then we're also paying for Infinite Campus or whatever. So are we trying to shift all things to one application so that staff and parents and all have one unified platform to work from?
That is a communications goal, but this is just for emergencies, like critical emergencies.
But then
We talked about that a lot in our tech committee meeting when we were looking at these different things with Joe. And some really interesting points came up. That was one of them, and really a great perspective from people on that committee that are also their teachers, their parents, they have kids in multiple grade levels, and that they were concerned with the same thing as that, are we looking for something, we do need to streamline as a district some of our communication, that is true. And then Brad had an interesting outlook of that too, and obviously Brad can speak for himself, but that, yes, but those communications, a lot of parents ignore or wait till later or whatever. Oh, it's just a message from Independent Campus that I owe lunch money, blah, blah, blah. And that maybe we do need a two-pronged approach. Yes, we still need to streamline and consolidate communication with parents in general, just for the basics of the daily and that thing. But is it better to have one that if you get a message or an alert from this app, we have something going on down here at the school, like it's an emergency. It's not your lunch bill, it's not your,
This doesn't have a family
those are
piece
just,
yet.
No,
not
this is
yet,
just
no,
internal.
this is just internal only with the possibility of a
I
family.
think he said in March, they're hoping
Yeah.
to launch the parent.
So those are all good discussions, and we've had them kind of as a group representing the school too, for different things. And I'm not sure we're ready, I don't know, this is my opinion, I'm not sure if there still needs to be some things that we need to look at. And I don't know if it's worth saving $500 if we aren't really sure, I don't know. But other districts are using it, they like it, I've talked to other principals. Again, it would be an emergency only scenario. Are they using it every day? Not necessarily, hopefully not. I mean, nobody wants to be in crisis like that all the time, so.
Well, the other.
I thought Brad's point was really good. I thought the teachers
Yeah,
that
I've got a
are,
couple of, so it only works if everybody's bought in, right? You can't have some teachers that say, I will use my personal device for this, I'm happy to do that, and some are like, no, that's not, we shouldn't expect that, I guess, from my perspective of, you have to use your personal device, and we're not gonna reimburse it, or we're not gonna cost share it, or anything, that's on you. Like, I don't think that's fair, in my opinion. But it only works if everybody does it.
It can be on their desktop, on their computer, their school computer.
Yeah, but I guess I'm not in the classroom every day, but I can see where you have chaos and you're not at your desk while you've got chaos trying to deal with whatever else is going on. Like, you're gonna be on the move, corralling into corners, whatever. It's not like you can just sit there and wait for a message to come through. But regardless, and then also, is it typical for us to get into just 3-year commitments right off the bat without, because this is a 3-year term. So if we approve it now, it'll be for 3 years. We'll have to use it for 3 years unless we have a buyout clause or something. Do we typically do 3 years? Is there a
There's a lot of 5-year,
5-year?
3-year. Yeah, I mean, and we can renegotiate if that's something that, we want to try it out and see if we feel like it works. If you think, like I said, that was one of the downsides is, I don't have a pulse on the staff buy-in yet on that, like who would be willing to put it on their device or who wouldn't. So those are things that we can continue to look at.
And then also the other concern I had was to Sherry's point about training and implementation. They basically are passing that off to our staff, is the way I read the paragraph. It's like, yeah, we'll call you once a week to make sure everything's going okay, but the rest of it's on you. And I don't know, maybe your tech staff has capacity to train everybody to do that, but if I can't get it to download, who are they gonna go to? Well, it's not the company, it's gonna be Joe, right?
The way I read it, it looks like they train, like we provide a team, like to be the leaders, and they train that team, not the entire staff. And then it's kind of up to our team to train the rest of that. Again, I might be reading that incorrectly.
Well, if that's the case, then do we still have that capacity, right? So you're adding a workload to staff.
Yes.
And trying to push it forward. And so I guess from my perspective, I feel like we're kind of rushing to fail, to use Member Reagan's term, but I don't know that we're ready to, I guess I'm one person, but I would rather us have a unified approach that is all inclusive to get there, but then also is not like, we're gonna have this app for this, and this app for this, and this app for this. Like, can we just get to a place where we have one well thought out?
In the research that we've done up to this point, and in talking to others, I haven't found any that have the safety capabilities with the mapping and everything that are also a communication. And like Infinite, we're never gonna find a communication tool that does what Infinite Campus does. We'll always have to have Infinite Campus.
But some of the quotes you had though were for those, communications with teachers and staff and coaches and parents, even checking in on homework.
Yep.
Like so we're looking at apples and oranges. So that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, correct. Those were communication-based tools. This is a emergency tool.
But they're looking
Sure.
into branching out in the near future to do
They
the same
are
things?
working, like when we talked to them during their demo, he said that by the spring they'd have a parent portal, which, we know that you guys have all gotten the IC messages before, so you know that they're not always great, and sometimes there's some challenges with those. So the hope would be that we would also be able, I don't know what it's gonna look like. They're programming it right now, but I would hope that it would have some sort of way that I could send something out like, we are under lockdown. I will continue to notify you. Please do not come to the school. Those kinds of notices. Right now, what I would do is through the Emergent 3 app, I would say like, Luke, please send out an IC messenger to all parents that we have a situation. Please do not report to the school. We will keep you informed, continually. And also through Emergent 3, be able to remind the teachers, like, please don't be posting on Dojo. Please make sure students aren't posting. All communication on this emergency is going to be coming from Infinite Campus to parents, because that's what they had happen in Manhattan is teachers and different administrators and different people were sending out, and students on Facebook, and everybody was sending out different information that was conflicting and just heightened the conflict in the situation. So my big thing is just, having recently been in a school that I was visiting and went into a lockdown situation, and it was just coming over the intercom, lockdown. And the administration was in the room and no one knew where anything was happening, what was happening. And I just thought that would be a terrible situation to be in. And how would I respond? And it would be great to have something like this where, even if it's not on every single person's phone, I would hope enough people would be willing to have it on their phone to where you could, grab your neighboring teacher and say, we're fleeing this way. Or it's just a drill, or, that kind of thing.
So just quick perspective, Army National Guard rolled out their own app 2 years ago. We had the same concerns, and it was a minority that said, I'm not gonna put this on my phone, and we didn't force it. And now 2 years later, everyone's got it on their phone. It's the communication platform of choice. It's not a safety platform. So over time, they see how intuitive they are and how easy of use it is. People just go with the flow, and you're always gonna have some naysayers. In my experience, I think if there are naysayers, they'll get over it and they'll come on board, because it's not just about the kids' safety, it's about their personal safety too. It's to help save lives ultimately, right? So I think as a board, we need to consider, is this safety or communications? It's both, but safety is our number one priority. And then the second part is the juice worth the squeeze? $1,000 to set it up and $1,700 ongoing. That's pretty cheap when you compare it to the other platforms that are out there that offer more. So anyway, that's why I made the motion. That's all I have on that.
I know using Infinite Campus Messenger, and I know Luke talked about this too. They really streamline it, but I could see what Susie's saying about some of the like the limited capabilities of it. Like you could send out an emergency message on Infinite Campus. They now have it all designated. It's much easier than it ever used to be. It is way more streamlined. I know when I push the non-emergent send for like attendance and things like that, my phone lights up immediately within 5 minutes, so people are getting it. So I know there's that capability, but I think, you know, to Susie's point on the pro side of something like this is that it doesn't have the GPS capabilities. It doesn't have, you know, the platform to be able to, what's the word I want? Use like a chat board or a message board to help communicate with what's going on. So I definitely see both sides. I see some good things out of both of it and how it could be used in combination with a message, whatever, you know, Infinite Campus, which we're always going to have. We need a grading program. So, yeah. I don't know.
So can I persuade any input out of the teachers in this? And it doesn't have to be about this specific, I guess, more general. Do you think there's a need for this type of service? Would you feel more comfortable if we had something like this implemented? Any general? Yes.
So my comment back to Jason, cool. Initially, when Susie proposed this, I felt the very same way you did until we visited together as a team and discussed it, and until I heard Brad's comment about it being only for emergencies. I think that there's value in both. I think they're two totally different things. I apologize on behalf of myself for adding some confusion, introducing the other communication tools, but I felt that they were valid, and that I thought really strongly, like you do, that we need to have a unified tool and just using one unified tool. They're two totally different things. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I think that staff will use it. I know that there are things that we have them put on their personal devices and that they use regularly. I guarantee you that if any of these teachers have kids, they have a campus app on their phone. So there's things like that where there are Thrillshare app. We have extreme buy-in in the district with our Thrillshare app, according to our provider. So I don't see that we're gonna have as much pushback as you foresee. And then I haven't had a chance to actually preview their desktop app. The way most of those things, when they go off and everybody knows about it. So it would be, I think it's worthy of demoing that. I think it makes sense, but I think that it does make sense to have two separate apps.
Is this communication only for admin and people in the building, or is this going to go out to parents at that time too?
So you can set it up. So some districts have admin and teachers. Some districts have all support staff because like it might be a para on the playground that sees a threat. Some district, and then like in Manhattan, they have an agreement with the sheriff's department. Like we were talking to Sheriff Rouser about where the sheriffs also have it, and they actually split the costs with the sheriff's department in Manhattan, for example. So it depends on how you choose to set it up. But no, it wouldn't have parents, would not be on our interfacing part.
It would just be for the immediate emergency and how we respond.
Yeah, how the staff responds. I guess that's the biggest thing to me is just, and what we've learned, like I said, knowing how to respond depending on where the situation is, which is what I like about how they come in and do the mapping. So like if I know, you know, something doesn't, like a teacher can alert that something in the neighboring classroom doesn't sound right, like something's wrong. Even if it's like a medical emergency, the sheriffs then know like which door they can see on the map where, you know, exactly where they're going, whatever kind of emergency it might be. And then we can put on there, you know, whether it's a, you know, there's different buttons for what kind of an emergency, or you can put, you know, that it was resolved to not be an emergency, everything's okay, or you can put, you know, flee, that kind of thing. So
Well, now that we don't have telephones in all of our rooms, I think you would find most everyone would love to have it. because I'm back in the corner, if something happens, my neighbor don't know how to, I have to find my phone and try to call somebody and try to text Christina.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. I mean, if something bad happens emergency wise, our phone is our only way to you. Our phone, my phone.
And that's
Right.
all we have to use.
There's like this weird box in my room and there's a button on it. And it might be a portal to Narnia if I hit it. Right? So, you know, whatever you gotta do. I mean, in lieu of getting everybody phones, right? Like, I think that makes sense. I'd love to hear recommendations on what an SRO officer has to say, maybe Sheriff Hauser. I don't know if, I mean, it sounds like they're willing to share the cost, but do they have any experience with this? Do they have any experience with this at other schools, other sheriff departments? Yeah.
Yeah, he, just in our conversations with it, said that, they'd utilize it with us and be interested in trying it out and running the drills with us and having the SRO. A portion, like whatever level of deputies is determined to have it on their phones. I could request that he reaches out to his colleagues that utilize it in Manhattan. I don't know if they have. Those are good questions. And we are working on the phone issue in the classrooms as well. So hoping to get there to where we can get back to phones being in the classrooms now that we've heard that there's a need for that.
Even then though, I don't know, well, depending on the phone, maybe we can send out a general announcement, but I don't know if you want that in a room full of kids or
Still with the
logistics
classroom
of
phones, it's like we couldn't send out an alert like we could to this app, right? So,
And we're not always in our room.
yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of them, I don't know how many are gonna keep their phones on them too. How many are gonna keep their cell phones on them to have that, if that's where the app is?
But how many are hauling their computer around with them? I mean,
Most
right,
people are.
especially if you got a desktop, it's hard.
Yeah.
What, the only thing I'd say is, I mean, and I have a lot of opinions about needing, your personal cell phone during this, but I do think it's important, whether you streamline all of your communications or whatever, feedback from parents through the course of, a lot of different tragedies and the COVID things, and we used to send out announcements all the time, is that if you use those things too much, they don't pay attention. I had parents tell me, oh, they hear it's a recording from school. I didn't listen to the whole message, I just did. And because they're busy, and if you send out this, I guess I look at whether it's this app, whatever we use, I think it's important to have one dedicated to safety, in my opinion, because it's like the bat phone. If it goes off, it's time to go. Those other ones, they do. People, how many times does your phone ring and you're talking to somebody, you just hit silent, you don't even look at it. You hear that go off, I gotta go. It's kind of like an Amber Alert, everybody picks up the phone, what's that noise? Whereas I think everybody's phones make so much noise during the day that you just get sensitized, they're desensitized to all the different things. And if you have one that when that goes off, I need to pay attention. I think that's important, regardless of what we use for all the other stuff, or what actual product it is. But I think that'd be important.
Do we know if this app overrides the sound settings on the phones?
I don't know that.
Because if you're turned down, I know we use an app that for search and rescue, and if your phone's turned down, it won't override the sound, so it's no good that way.
That's why I asked about the GPS part of it too. If your location services are off, will it let you know?
Well, and I was trying to remember too, is in that when you go in to set off the alarm or respond as to what the status of your room is and all that, when you set that alarm off, is it based off of your location, or are you picking the room?
From what I remember from the demo, and I think it was from the demo that I had with the superintendents, because like for one of the drills that she did, she picked a location like for the practice, like chose the library to be the location. So I believe you can click or it can go off of your GPS, but like those kind of super in the weed technical questions, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if we need to get more and have them come do a more formal presentation and get all those questions answered before you guys are comfortable, or if it's something that, for the, I guess for me, for the cost, for the peace of mind, I'd like to try it out and learn through it. And so that's why I brought it to the board as my recommendation. But we can definitely, we're only saving $500. If we need to wait another meeting and get everyone's questions answered, I have no problem with that either.
I just want to make sure Mrs. Bliley doesn't get left out. If you have anything to
No,
add.
Safety is number one priority, so I would have no problem putting something on my phone I think we probably should have something in place. As a parent and as a teacher in the school, that's very important.
Thank you. I'm happy and willing to support it. I just, is it the right tool? I don't, the only concern I had too is if you get into it in a year and you don't like it, the full balance is due regardless if we don't like it or not. That's just the way the contract is written, so. Pay our $5,000 after year one, or if you like it, that's great. Enhance it and grow it.
Yeah, I guess I'm in favor of doing something. I do believe that the emergency thing should be separate from our educational communication. Money is, of course, a big concern. So before we spend the money, I do want to make sure that we feel it is the right tool. So in my mind, I would probably forego saving the $500 for another month to make a better informed decision if we can get more of the questions answered. And maybe this is the right one, but I feel like we don't agree or understand if it is the right one or not. So that's where I'm at.
You guys, everybody's confident that this is the right tool or not confident?
I still have questions, that's why I asked her.
I don't have anything to compare it to. I don't.
And I think it's kind of like the buses. I think this whole thing is relatively new in terms of how many schools are using it. So reaching out, I think I don't know how many schools have this type of tool.
I guess I defer to those that have seen other ones. If you guys have or haven't, I don't have. I think we need something. It'd be great, but.
I know I haven't had a chance to reach out to them yet personally. We just kind of found out about it, but I don't know where Mr. Carr stands on it, but whether he had a chance today or not. But it would be nice, I think, to hear from them a little bit more information from the technical side from our end. And I think we could help report back and help you guys make a better decision.
Some of those could be answered, some of those questions, most of those questions could be answered with a phone call without rather than,
Do we think we can get that done before the January meeting?
That's the other thing. Honestly, it doesn't necessarily warrant board approval. It's within the threshold that
is true.
I could make the determination. I just like to bring these kinds of things before the board. And with the date, and I just got, he called and made this special offer. So that's why I didn't have enough time to get the safety committee together, but I could pull a safety committee meeting together before the break. And even see if I could get the questions answered and see if we were ready to move and find out from what I haven't spent a ton of time on it, but I don't know of any other safety apps that have this capability that are in this price range. So I could pull, he seems like a very active salesman. Like I said, was really pushing this. offer for the new year, I could pull the safety committee together and move forward. And, you know, make sure we get some more teacher input and move forward before the break, still within the proposed rate before you guys.
I'd be willing to bet he's got, just say, look, we're not gonna get it, it must be the same deal. Next month, he's gonna give it to you. They need to sell.
I can
Worse
also
than we need
work
to-
on negotiating the 3-year term.
Well, that was my
Sounds like
wondering, is
fine.
there a way to just, is there like a trial term or something, or a, hey, you get to try it out for, you know, and then we can do some tests with it and see how user friendly it is. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the only downside to that is if like the parent, it sounds like they're growing rapidly. I know
Right.
more and more schools, there are quite a few districts utilizing it now. I could get the full list. But I mean, it could, and once they have the parent portal launched this spring and things, it could be something that doubles in price where it would have been good to have it locked in for the 3 years. I mean, those are risks that you take. But so those are my thoughts. I guess I've gotten to see it a couple of times, and I feel like the fact that we have colleagues that are using it and we've gotten good reports about how it works, and it just seems like a step in the right direction. I think, you know, in order to implement the things we've learned through training, for like number one, fleeing for safety, I don't see how we do that without this information, without something like this.
Mr.
All
Chair.
right, there is a
Yeah, you got a motion.
motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-2. Again, I do think it's a good thing. I just want to make sure that it is the right tool. So
Yeah.
I do support the motion to move forward in this direction. I just want to make sure that the admin and the team and the school and everybody feels like it is the right thing. So hopefully we can get those questions cleared up and share them with everybody.
Right, and obviously we'll make sure it's compatible tech-wise. We'll get the questions answered, and work with staff on it. And I can still work on the negotiations and bring you guys more information. So.
Would that also be something you would discuss with the new SLR person?
Yeah, and we talked to Sheriff Rouser about it today. Yeah, and then he said definitely he would want the SRO to be a part of it, and as well as himself and other deputies.
If I could just say kind of the same thing, is I do fully support everything and going forward with this too. I just had some outstanding questions, so. But yeah, hopefully it works out how we want it to.
Again, our experience with our Guard app, and the fact that they're rolling out another capability this spring, the sooner we get it in the hands of the teachers, the more feedback we can get to give to them, because there's a good chance that they'll actually add to that app to fit whatever shortfalls that our teachers see. So I think the sooner the better to get that information to them so they can potentially add to it, so we don't have any gaps anyway. So you might want to talk with them too when you get the contract initiated. So
Thank you. Yeah, and I think if we can get things in place so we can spend the time on February 9th getting staff trained, that will be helpful as well on that PIR day.
Okay, moving on. Approved student attendance agreements.
These are just a stack of attendance agreements we received from Three Forks. I'm assuming that they've had them for a while and we just received them. They're not previous students. That they live in the Toston area.
I'll move to approve the attendance agreements with Three Forks School District.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the attendance agreements with Three Forks School District. Is there any discussion?
So, yeah, how much money are we gonna lose? Are these students going to that school?
There's quite a few, so the A and B for those students. I did not do the math on,
Yeah, the A and B is different for each grade level, so it's.
Is there like a rule of thumb just in general?
so 5,500 for elementary.
And it's up to almost 14.
Oh, we just talked
We
about
just
it.
went through it.
The high school,
I
It's a
don't
different-
remember.
the scale of dollars gets
It's like 40 grand probably, right?
Yeah, those are students that have attended in Three Forks. Usually we get all of the attendance agreements in the fall, so I'm not sure if they were just cleaning up paperwork or got someone new on board and got those sent to us. But those students have not been students of ours, and there are definitely the students on that border. Yeah,
So they've never been in our
Gotcha. Okay, so they're
budget.
not.
It's not being subtracted
Okay. Thank
from
you.
something that we projected.
Okay, that's what I was told. Okay, thank you.
yes. Yeah, we were just looking up the A and B numbers
I
the
don't
other day.
remember.
Any
I
further-
asked the same thing when we saw them come in, and I verified with the admin team and the counselors that we weren't losing those students.
In the future, we should probably do some screeners on those kids, shouldn't we? Like vertical jump, 40 times.
You know what a basketball looks like.
Any further discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passed. Approve response to Shopper surveying subdivision proposal.
This is the last page of your newer packet is the letter that I wrote. And I did go over this with Jeremy and Ed today, as I mentioned, and had asked them to review the information in your packet. So we do need to so our job when we get these, and we do get these regularly, is to make sure that there is appropriate transportation, like bus pickup spot, when there's a new development. So we do get these letters. There is a bus stop across the highway, one family, but we don't want to have the kids crossing the highway. And then the Windy Meadows is up too far. We don't want the kids walking along the highway. So we do need to make sure that we're making it known to them that they need to have a bus turnaround at the entry of their subdivision, and that it would not be appropriate for our buses to go through their loop. So we are asking that they make sure there's a turnout there. And I will submit that letter on the school district's behalf unless you have any changes.
Yeah, I think it should be left in farm ground personally.
The sound of it will be.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be anything happening anytime soon,
No,
but they
I'm
are
sure this is
putting the
Someday.
days
The-
down the road.
they are putting the tracks in place, and Mr. Schindel did say that he's on the planning board or some kind of board, and would also mention this for us at their meeting.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the separate superintendent's response to the Sharber surveying letter dated November 20th, 2020.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the superintendent's response to the Shopper Surveying Incorporated letter dated November 20th, 2023. Is there any discussion?
Just in our packet, the actual date is November 11th on her letter.
That's what she received.
This is her response. So just so Susie's response is, I just read off the motion, but I think it was written today.
No, the motion is when Shopper survey received, I did the same thing.
Okay.
It's,
This
the
is
wording was, I just,
No, but the letter from them was November, right?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
All right, any further discussion? Discussion?
I'm just wondering if, depending on how their access is, if they have access onto the highway at each one of those lots, are we requiring them to put a bus terminal at each one of those?
I said it looks like it's just 4 spots on the highway, so that's what I was wondering. It's not a wraparound subdivision.
It's a 6, well, if you look at the,
They said they have four properties, 4.
It's 80 acres being divided into 4 lots.
Yeah, so each one are 20 acres, there's 4 lots, it's not a subdivision.
Well, it's called a subdivision.
Yeah, they have to
Right.
handle a subdivision technically by law
Because of the size.
Yes, because of the size and because it's within an existing subdivision.
So they need to create a
They have
a
to do it.
bus pull off, yeah.
Just a single one for that whole section.
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passed. Personnel resignations.
Okay, so we have paraprofessional Megan Osborne. Cindy Wheeling is retiring. She's been incredible. We're sad to lose her. And close-up coordinator Joe Gill, who is taking on esports and decided he can't do it all.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to accept.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resignations as presented. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to just say that we treasure Cindy Wheeling, and I know she did not want to leave us, but, you know, this is just where we're at with everything, and of course, her health and well-being are the most important, and we're hopeful she will find whatever she needs to get healthy, and maybe she will come back to us sometime in some capacity, but we truly appreciate everything she's done for our students in our school. She's wonderful.
Yes, I think everyone feels that way. And then on behalf of Megan too, she's done a great job with our students, and she's leaving to help at one of the much needed daycare preschools in town. So wishing her well also, and thank you for her commitment. She was a reliable paraprofessional that we were thankful to have. So
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passed.
Probably should have left Joe out of
Let's
this.
say, give Joe thanks too.
Joe's wonderful too.
Appreciate you, Joe.
and-
I've got Joe later.
All right,
he's excited about esports.
employment.
Okay, so substitute Whitney Robertson, boys basketball volunteer Trey Hovland, and then we also had a newer one come in. We have Dane Stiles. So I'm adding that to the
We
list.
didn't approve him last time because he was on our, maybe, okay.
He just turned his paperwork
Oh, he
in.
just turned his paperwork in,
Mhm.
okay, okay. just making sure.
So Trey Holan and Dane Stiles for basketball volunteers, winter cheer volunteer Michaelan Smedley, bus driver Todd Kiddo, paraprofessional Ashlyn Stevens and Colleen Dales. We're glad we had some great applicants, and we're really excited about them replacing the paras and being full staffed to support the students. Fifth day program, Jenna Frazier, adult education, Audrey Martin. Excited that we got an applicant. And she has a lot of great state connections and good ideas. We're looking forward to that. I was worried I was going to be working as the adult education winter director, so coordinator. We're glad for that. And I know, and I want to thank Sherry and Donna Kutshaw have been filling in with a lot of extra facilities, coordination and duties since we haven't had someone in this position. So Audrey Martin, and then our ASL, one of our interpreters is in a period of transition. We're hoping she can return, but she needs to be gone for a bit. And Gracie Olds is a student learning ASL and is willing and able to help out on those days that we had April previously. We have two ASL interpreters that take turns on days. So Gracie will fill in for April while she's gone.
I'll move to approve the hires as presented for the 2023-2024 school year pending successful background checks.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hires as presented for the 2023-2024 school year pending successful background checks. Is there any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passed. Policy review.
Your favorite part. And just when we thought we got done with all of the policies, MTSBA sent out the second set of updated policies from the legislative session. So we are starting with the required ones, and some of the ones we'll go through tonight are ones that I felt like we could, I could work on and have recommendations for you tonight. Some of the ones that are going to need more thought and detail we'll save for the next meeting, but I've already started working on, just so you know. Thank you all. You don't want to stay for policy. Come on.
Quieter here.
All right.
So the first three though are for second reading are the ones that you guys went over last time, and we just need to do your official approval for second reading on multi-district teacher recruitment and retention and district safety.
Move to approve on second reading of above policies as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve on second reading the above mentioned policies as presented. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes.
Okay, in your packet, you have the MTSBA model policies, and then in your handout, you have my recommendations. So if you want to, the edits I made as recommendations. And just a side note, also while you're getting organized, I did send off all of our other ones, and they should be updated on Assembly on our policy site that's maintained by MTSBA. So the sheet that you have with the red ones for Christmas, for December, we're doing the red ones, and the other ones we will do in the next meeting. So we'll start with the first one on the list that is the first red one, and it is policy 1400 board meetings. So you'll see in my typed up version in your packet that is stapled, I changed it to reflect Townsend. I noted that we will post at the county, Broadwater County office and the post office for board meetings. I noted that we will meet in the community room at 6 p.m. on the second Tuesday of each month. And I noticed that our publishing, we get to the Nancy and she's gone. I noticed that our publishing will take place in the county paper of record if applicable, or the Helena IR. We have gone through challenges in the past when we didn't have a county paper of record that had the qualifications necessary to be a paper of record, in which case we have to use the Helena IR for the legal notices such as our budget meetings.
And you emailed these to us, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not duplicating my efforts.
There was some in the packet that had blanks and things that she just filled in.
Yeah, so your one in the packet is just the MTSBA ones with the blanks. And then I went through and typed my recommendations in, and that's the packet that you have that's stapled.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Sorry, there's a lot of paper tonight. So these are the ones that I typed in my recommendations. And it does say that we can, we have to do at least one of the following: post the link to the meeting agenda on the website, or post the agenda to social media. So you have to do at least one of those. That's policy 1400. And the rest of it is just details that you guys already have had in place. Are there any questions on policy 1400?
I move to approve as written. Second.
Okay, so policy 1511, code of ethics. There wasn't anything I needed to change on here. It's just noting that there's no longer the reference to the National School Boards Association.
Move to approve policy 1511.
A second.
Policy 2151F is the school activities informed consent and insurance verification form. And this just is what we're required now to have to make sure that students are insured or are understanding that they will be assuming costs for activities. And I just put our school district name in there.
Move to approve 2151F.
A second.
So policy 2320 is the field trip policy, and it is just updated to reference parent consent for field trips, especially out of state.
Move to approve the original.
A second.
We'll do one formal motion at the end for all of them, as long as nobody has, we'll just, yeah. So we'll just, you're good, as long as.
Okay.
And I like
That just signifies that you're ready to move on, that works.
And you're keeping it rolling.
Yep,
And
we'll do
with
one.
the same
but
names,
we'll do
which
one
helps
motion.
Casey.
I love
As long as there's not.
Yeah, I was just letting them talk, so
I
it was
know.
just the same. notes
Yeah.
consistent.
That helps, Casey. Okay, so policy 3305, seclusion and restraint. And this one just outlines the requirements for seclusion and restraint and aversive techniques. Staff did recently have CPI training and have ongoing CPI training. So we do have the professional development in place that it discusses. We do have the designated locations in our de-escalation rooms, in our special education rooms, as the policy describes. There was nothing that I needed to do to this policy. It does go along to some degree to the next policy, 3310P1, which is student risk assessment. And I am glad to see these updated. These are ones that we do have to reference and utilize as staff. And these are part of the crisis management document. I added to the crisis management document, which you can see behind there. And I did send it out to all of the staff and highlight the areas to make sure they are aware of the updates in policy and law. For example, when it's only reasonable to restrain a student when them or another person are in danger, that the most senior trained individual should take charge in seclusion or restraint. We usually call that a tap out. They learn those kinds of processes in their CPI training. So you tap out to the senior most trained person, that witnesses need to report the event. Parents need to be notified. It goes through, what kind of documentation and notification needs to take place for parents. And also talking about training of school personnel and the team, and when sheriffs are involved in those critical components. So I did highlight those components and send that out to staff today as well, to make sure they were informed of the updated changes, and just always as a good reminder. And I know the staff does a great job under those circumstances and already follows those, but it's good to have it spelled out and reminders out.
Okay. Good. Good.
Okay, so then we are on to 3410, which is the medical, okay. So 3410, we have the student health examinations and the medical exam notice. So these are both forms that we didn't have anything. I just put the word Townsend into 3410F, the medical exam notice. That is that if there's a medical exam, parents now need to be informed and have the right to consent. And their religious exemption statement form from DPHHS. So,
The only question I had on that one to be, in the medical consent part of the policy underneath the blanks, so it'd be like the third paragraph, it lists out who services may be rendered by. I know we have some county organizations that are involved with helping out with these things. Are those inclusive, is the language here inclusive enough, I guess is what I'm asking, to include those
that's a good question.
other entities? Because it kind of lists out schools, districts, staff, and then, so I just want to make sure that we're utilizing those existing civic organizations that they're included.
And I guess what I'm wondering is what does medical exam consent entail? Because right now our handbook states that we're gonna do the hearing and vision. Is that part of that? I mean, what is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where are you seeing that? Am I looking at the wrong thing?
That says, the way it reads, says the board may arrange each year for health services to be provided to all students. Such services may include but not limited to blah, blah, blah.
That's why I can't find it. That's why I'm like, I'm looking.
My first question is which one of you is going to come in and schedule all that? It says the board, they arrange it. Or come in and do some scoliosis screening. But then it says, it's kind of confusing because then it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the first page of the policy and the.
And the new
Oh,
package.
I'm the wrong one?
No, you're good.
Oh, you're good.
You're
It
looking
wasn't
at
in
the
here. We were looking in here.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that page. Okay, thank you.
I
That's
guess my
helpful.
question with that, along with Jason's, was, the way it reads, I understand it to be, do all of those things up above, those 6 things listed, do they fall under this? The district will not conduct physical examinations of a student or health services without parental consent. Are they talking about those 6 up there being included in that?
Correct. So this is part of that whole, I guess, set of parental rights and involvement new legislation. So this is saying that there's another layer now of the schools being required to notify and get consent from parents. Where previously we just did, vision checks, those kinds of
Opt out to consent in, so opt out to opt in.
So, like a lot of the things we do, we have one form that, you get your consent for using the internet, for having your picture in publications. I'm assuming we could just do that too, or do you have to?
No, not, now we have to do this. This form
So
policy,
you have to send something home with every single student.
yes, this is the new component of policy 3410F.
So who changed it from opt out to consent to?
The legislature.
That was part of theirs.
I just recently seen forms come out that say stated opt out from the school. So I know those will have to be changed.
Well, the opt outs for other things, not this is.
The other one I seen is related to this.
To this?
Mental health services.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is this outside of the sports physicals and the hearing and vision? Are there more things than this? Than those 3 things?
Scoliosis.
I don't think anyone's done scoliosis screens
A
here.
lice check, a health check.
I'd say, yeah, we have that too.
Oh, which one? Oh,
Lice check.
yes.
So you gotta send home a letter,
Mhm.
get out.
You won't be
Your
on
lice,
school then.
the lice is out of control by the time you get all.
Yeah, yeah, like you're not gonna.
Not doing.
No, I think they can just come pick them up. No, I know there's also health rules that we can't
Yeah, I'm just saying,
send them home
I
if
mean,
they're
it
not
makes it almost,
hatched, so.
Yeah, they have
Says-
just nits, but still, if you have to wait for consent, we're not, we're
Yeah.
gonna have a lice breakout then.
The third word is may, the board may arrange. Doesn't mean we have to.
no, we don't, that was my next question, is do we even have to do those?
So we just accept the policy and then we just say, well, we elect not to.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that.
The-
We
the-
got a bunch of school-out kids. We'll just, you know, if they're,
Legally, you have to allow parents the option.
So the big thing is not whether we're doing the screenings or not, it's that now we have to get consent.
Whatever we do.
Whatever, if we decide to do screenings, we have to get consent. I do think that screenings are very important.
Right, but is this just something we're gonna do at the beginning of each year so that we have it? So that you're not sending it home in the middle of.
That's
You
what,
don't know what
outbreak.
you're.
but I think that's what Brad was saying, is like, we have our forms that go out at the beginning of the year. Do we just change it to where that's part of it, to where we know in our policy it states we do hearing and vision.
Yeah.
We know we are probably gonna have lice checks. We know those things that we're always gonna have. Do we just have that form created and ask for consent ahead of time for each one? I mean, you could pick and choose whether they say yes or no to.
The only
but
thing
this,
I would need to check is that some of these have, some of these new parent notification laws, so I'd have to look up the MCA. Some of them have timelines, like you have to get consent within so many hours. It's not like you can just get a blanket consent.
the form here is very specific. If this is the actual form, it says, request my student receive a medical exam for blank to be held on a specific day.
Yes, and that's the
I mean,
whole, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah,
it's,
that's what I'm,
it's moving towards, yes, you need to do this before each exam and they have to be scheduled and parents have to have ample
life
notification.
check to be held on 20 minutes from now.
Well, maybe lice is an exception. It's not listed there.
Separate policy.
There is a lice policy.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I don't know if this supersedes it or, but yeah, I just use lice as a, thing. But yeah, so I mean, very rarely do you know the dates of all those checks. I guess you could.
I guess the biggest question would be, is that considered a medical exam or not? It is kind of a screening.
According to this, it is.
Is it?
It's listed,
Okay.
it says vision and hearing screening.
No, I meant lice.
Oh, lice.
I was on the lice, sorry.
Yeah, it's-
I would think it would be.
I mean, some parents just want to know if you're going to be in their kid's space and they've determined that they have the right to know, and it's just one more, it is another step, but we do know when those are scheduled. And I know Ms. Hartman does a really good job of organizing the vision and hearing screenings with the Lions Club, and that's what you were referencing, Member Cole.
Can you enlighten me on like number 1? What are we going to be asking for consent on number 1? And how do you do that when you have kids that are sick during the day?
if they're concussed, do we send a letter
Well,
home and say, bring it back, but in 3 days, I'll check it out?
No, I think number one, we already knew and we just use common sense. It's basically like you have a kid that has the flu, you're not gonna lock them in a room by themselves where we can't see them, or have a certain doctor see them that's not without parent consent.
Right.
I wouldn't overthink it. Just like we don't ever, there is, okay, so if the next policy might help. emergency treatment.
I
For
mean, the big
example,
one is that we do, or the screen is the vision and screen and hearing.
Right, I was just curious, so when I talked about temporary care of them while they're ill, it's just like,
and we do, I mean, just what you guys already have, you have the sick room and procedures in place for that. The emergent treatment, I think your office should never been placed across the hall.
Ice pack thermometer and a thing of Band-Aids,
So
Lots of ice packs.
the emergent treatment helps kind of clarify the difference, like if it's, obviously we can call an ambulance or take a child to the hospital if we cannot reach parents, that kind of thing. So I think that helps
Yeah, that's pretty good.
clarify some of
what
those.
we do anyway now.
So something we might have to follow up on then, I'm guessing our like medical consent forms and all that stuff that we have to sign, we're gonna have to review all of those, I'm guessing, right?
Yep, just like
Them all. Okay.
we just had our handbooks updated, right?
Yep.
By Chris Goss, and we'll have to update our handbooks to align with these new policies once again.
Okay.
But the medical consent forms are just an emergency treatment, right?
Yeah, they are. Is
That
what
in
it is?
case we can't get hold of a parent,
Okay.
we can, because I know,
Well, we have to check and make sure it's in alignment with this
right,
policy.
just that if
Okay.
there's
Okay,
because we've taken kids
right.
before, like a big gash in his head, and they wouldn't do anything because he didn't turn in his form, and we couldn't get hold of parents,
Well, and this says we can, so,
Yeah, I'm saying the
Yeah.
hospital wasn't without
Right.
that form
Yeah.
right.
at that time. I mean, it was, obviously, they would do life-saving.
I thought the do not resuscitate part was pretty interesting. Okay, so any questions on emergency treatment? It's pretty clear. Right. Policy 5223, personal conduct. Just talks about, oh, sorry, I was on the wrong line here. To more clearly comply with ethical standards of employees. It's a lot about, like, making sure that they're not making money off of extra opportunities while working at the school, or off, that have to do with the kids. Economic benefit is the kind of conduct we're talking about. Any questions on that one? Okay. Did I lose a page here? Or did I mix it up? 52.
So there's like a firearms or what?
Are we missing that page?
No, that's just.
Oh, I'm missing a page somehow. Okay, so on the firearms and weapons, I know our state has gone back and forth on that. Wait, that's not one we had listed.
No, it's in that personal conduct.
Oh, and the firearms and weapons. That's where I got mixed up. Okay, I thought that was a separate one. So the state has gone back and forth on whether or not school personnel can carry weapons, and it's saying no. Okay, so then we get to maternity and paternity leave. And the part that we need to make a decision on is the school district has determined that maternity leave shall not exceed blank weeks unless mandated otherwise by the employee's physician. And so this is when the FMLA is not in place. And the previous, from 2004, I found a Townsend policy that had it set at 6 weeks.
This is outlined in our CBA though, too.
Not
It
really.
says it adheres to FMLA, and this policy is saying when FMLA doesn't apply, this is what happens.
So, yeah, so that paper is in your packet. The CBA is right behind it. it just says the Family Medical Leave Act will be followed. But then Pam helped me find this policy from 2004, and which says the district used to do 6 weeks. So some places do 6, some do 12. So depends if you'd like it to be 6 or 12 weeks. So I can put that in there.
I'd go 6.
I go 12.
The only ones that don't fall, but only employees that haven't been employed for a year, correct, don't fall under FMLA. You have to be employed for a full year, correct? Everybody else falls under FMLA.
It's 1,250 hours.
Okay.
It's an hours base, so yeah, however that works.
That's like 3/4
Yeah.
or something, just roughly. 'cause
They
that's-
have to work 1,250 hours with it.
31.25 weeks.
Yeah, it's because our old thing's always said 1 year, the old ones, so it's roughly the same as the school year.
Yeah, the one before this that I found didn't say anything about it, then Pam found this one in
So basically, this
old
applies
binder
to
she
first
had.
year employees.
I mean, yeah, so 6 or 12 weeks. Seem to be the general options. The district did 6 prior.
Let Chase and Vanessa arm wrestle over it.
I don't have
Does-
a personal
does,
recommendation.
If we can financially support 12 weeks, does that give us a recruiting edge for UT?
It's unpaid.
And we have to pay the substitute to fill their spot.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess unless you took the job, I won't even explain. Because it only applies to people that have not been employed for, and just be first year teachers.
Gotcha.
Yes. I mean, it'd probably help if somebody gonna have baby want to teach a job, I'll go there.
Or longevity was the other thing I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Take care of my first year, then they're willing to stay a second year,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that makes a difference.
And most of those don't have the vacation days, so, I mean, I would think as long as health is okay, they're gonna probably try to get back to work, as soon as they can. I think all we're really doing is saying we're gonna guarantee you have this available
If you want.
if you need it.
Want to go 8, 10, do something crazy?
Yeah, split the difference.
I would do 12.
It makes them happy. Keep them happy, keep them happy.
There's just a lot going on still in 6 weeks.
There's a lot going on.
That's why I haven't said anything, because I really don't feel like I have.
Don't have the expertise to speak to that one.
Neither do I. So 12?
That's fine.
Okay. And that is a wrap for tonight.
Okay,
New
so I need a
policies.
motion to approve those discussed policies on first reading.
Motion to approve as discussed.
A second.
Moved and seconded to approve the previously discussed policies on first reading. Is there any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes.
I've never run a spot in here before.
It's always pretty great.
So usually it's crazy.
There's a lot of new information coming out on, oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good. Is that, you're gonna discuss that one a little bit?
Yeah, just wanted to briefly say, I know Christina and her team has started looking at it and we've been talking, and there's a lot of information coming out from the state. There's guidance coming out from different legislators and school administrators of Montana. So I am trying to do my research on that and put together more detailed information for you. one of the things is that to make that happen, like if we do decide to do the 4-year-old kindergarten next year, we wouldn't get the A and B for a whole nother year. So some districts are even launching this spring. So I don't mean to shock everyone right now, but just wanted to put it out there. So I'm fast and furiously finding out as much as I can to see, so I can provide all the information and options to you guys. And we'll be working on getting that going. And that might bump our timeline up just a little bit that we were working on for that if we need to look at some of those options.
So this is different than the 4K, than what we were looking at
No.
initially? No? I thought this was for only kids who would not make benchmark by 3rd grade.
Correct.
So it wouldn't apply to every kid then possibly?
No. So we're no longer allowed to have a 4K unless the students meet the criteria. We're only allowed to enroll so the law changed from being allowing the board could approve any 4-year-olds that they wanted to start school. The law now says that they have to meet certain circumstances, and then we need to provide one of 3 different opportunities, and those opportunities are spelled out in the legislation. However, we wouldn't get if we decided to have the in-house option where we have those students start attending school, if they show that they're not on trajectory to be on grade level by 3rd grade, we wouldn't get the A and B for a whole nother year. So some districts are starting a spring program so that their spring A and B is bumped so they have more money to start this program next year. And I just heard about that.
One of the things we still need to find out, there's the policy that I've shared about whether we have kindergartners repeating if we get that A and B.
I did send that question in.
I know,
Yep.
we're still waiting on that.
And I just heard today in one of my webinars about kind of all the information out about some districts trying to pull things together this spring so they can bump their A and B so they have more funding to start that program next year. So.
More to come on that.
Yeah, I have some research to do and information to get to you on that.
This is hard. Oh, standing up. We don't need any more paper.
Yeah, I was
gonna
gonna say.
So, I asked the team to put together some pros and cons for the 4-day school week based on the elementary. And I just did a summary on the front, but I also attached the emails from the team so that you can actually read it directly from them as well. But as you can see, just some of the pros and cons, a lot of pros that they're seeing from it. Things that they were, some people were kind of concerned with. One thing we've seen definitely is improvement of attendance. The longer instructional time is actually giving them more time to get more rigorous into the required materials. There's adequate time for support and interventions. They're completing lessons on a daily basis versus going into another day. The student attention and stamina is consistent and stronger engagement. They seem more refreshed as well as the staff. The teacher's mental health and energy is up as more enthusiasm. The PLC days are really, have been seen as a big difference where we can have more time focused on what we want, our committees, what we want to do with we're looking at standards-based grading, cross-grade meetings, just the grade level meetings. So we actually more time with training. So the PLC days are utilized. I have my entire PLC days, all of them booked out for the rest of the year because that's how much the team has seen the benefit of it. They're not seeing any effect on the students with the longer day. Some are either on schedule with their pacing schedule or a little bit ahead for their curriculum, which everyone did, where we was required to create a pacing schedule right at the beginning of the school year. It's been a better schedule for SPED and title with regards to interventions. We are all seeing an academic growth being seen with our sped entitled students as well. Now, some of that maybe is it because of due to improvement in attendance, we don't know. Could be kind of a combination of both. It's hard to say that one thing. They've got positive opportunities of the 5th day program, and the behavior issues are the same. We're not seeing any increase, decline on that for the pros. Cons was the schedule. That was noted several times. Part of that's with the late decision going to a 4-day school week. That then the schedule fell on me mainly to create, and I'm not the one who's doing all the teaching all day. And I was able to pull some in, but it was not as much being over summer trying to do that. And so that is part of our PLC schedule, and the team does know that this year they will be creating that schedule using PLC time. And so we'll make it a better schedule across the board.
Is that the class schedules? It's not the calendar schedule?
Correct, the class schedule. So when they teach reading, math, when they have specials, that kind of thing. The specials, we did have to cut 1 PE and 1 music, just because now we had 4 days, which we added STEAM. I've got a lot of positive comments on STEAM, but again, the PE and music teacher have felt that the students are still missing out on that. Again, that can be still a schedule working with the team. I had to create the schedule. So the bus schedule, I know one thing I didn't want to have is kids getting on the bus before 7 a.m. On the other side of that, we have buses that are getting here at 7:55, 7:58, that's pushing through them into the morning. It's not like elementary, it's not as big of a deal. Middle and high school is a little bit different. The workload is a little more when the student is absent. We are sometimes pressed for when it comes to special things on time. That's something that we are learning. Things that we used to start in November, we are finding that we need to start a little earlier because we don't have as many days to plan for them and get prepped for them. So that's just a time management that we're having to learn through the school year. Not all families are using the 5th day. And then some suggestions on the back, is, again, it comes with the specials, art, doing a 2-week special schedules being increased PE and music, and then the 5-day week during homecoming or closer to the beginning of the school year. Those are just some suggestions. Again, I just summarized, you have everyone's comments from all the different grade levels, and they're labeled. So then if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out, or you can reach out to those team members if you're wanting more information on those pros and cons that they presented.
Thank you for that.
This is
Very
really
much.
great. Yeah.
Yes, I I'd almost go, I think we should put this in the paper. Seriously, because it's all about transparency, because I think there's still a lot of naysayers. I mean, I get a lot of feedback, people want to know, and I think this is golden. I think the community needs to know this, especially the pros part, because there was a lot of hesitation from a lot of folks going into it.
And honestly, even then, we've had discussions, obviously with staff, and you guys asked us before, and obviously we took that back and said, are there, I don't have anything formal like this, but when we read through this, it echoes so much for the high school, same thing, same concerns, same pluses, same minuses, but it would be really easy to put together data that could be considered district-wide. It wouldn't take much to morph and add that into middle school and high school as well. So, yep, same thing. And high school staff saying very many, almost identically the same things. So.
And if that's something that the board would like to see, if that's something you would like to see in the paper, I'd be happy to work with these guys and put middle and high school and put a combined effort together and have some put in.
Christine, appreciate the roll up. The proof in the pudding too, in my mind, is the one comment about the neither pro nor con is the benchmark testing too, and knowing where, because that's our ultimate report card, how the kids are actually learning. Anyway, I thought it was put together well, so thank you.
Any other questions on that before I move on to the other things? So we did have our concert last week, and thank you all those that attended our elementary or K5. Those who did saw that we did have a packed house twice. I did get a lot of comments on the split concert, and people really appreciated having it split. I had one negative, and that was just that we had everyone in one hallway. And so that's easily fixed to put one hallway with grade 5 and another hallway with K2, just so we have a little more space for everyone to just leave and to enter and exit. I don't know if anyone has had anything else come back to them as far as the concert goes. I know K2 were a little crowded still, and I don't know if leaving the bleachers off to the left and having more seating on the floor, if that would be better, but I'm open for thoughts and ideas behind that, so reach out with any ideas or any comments you hear on that, but that is the only negative I've received from the concert. I got a lot of positive feedback from it.
I know we talked a little bit after the concert, but I think like the one thing that might be pursued is trying to utilize 2 different doors to that gym
Yes.
during the transition time. Because you had a lot of this going through that door, parents coming in and out. I mean, it was the pain, however minor it was so much better than you being crammed into that building. So I thought that would have been good. Yeah, no, it
As I
was.
said, we had 2 there, it was full both times.
I was pleasantly surprised to see how many people were leaving. So I wasn't sure if we were gonna have.
Should have showed at 7:20, the line to get back in was easy.
Right, yeah, I wasn't sure we'd have it, so, no.
Yeah. Regarding enrollment, in October, we had 341, we are up to 345, so we keep seeing those numbers. We haven't dipped below that number, but we still see a lot of kids going in and out still. We got 2 new kids just a week ago now, so just constantly seeing that change over. The Veterans Assembly, I wasn't here last meeting, and I did share with you some feedback on that, but I just want to thank the team on all the efforts and everyone who's involved in that. I wasn't able to be here that last time and do that appropriately, so I just want to thank everyone that was a part of that and all their help in making that happen. It was a great assembly. Our K2 Parent-Teacher Conferences, we had an 86% attendance, so really happy with that number. We have had an instructional coach coming in. She has been visiting classrooms and as well as looking at our curriculum and how things are working. She's given us some great feedback, and she will actually be coming in our January PLC time and working on how we're grouping students in with their interventions and so forth. So we're really appreciative of that, and thanks Susie for having that instructional coach come in. It was a great asset to our team. We did get CPI training started for our last PLC day. We have 11 new members that started the first half of the training, and in January we will have 16, the 11 new ones, as well as five of us that need to get recertified, and there'll be 2 sessions on that day, morning and afternoon, that will get that completed. And then you can see that we have a few events coming up. The 20th, we actually had another event added on the 20th, so we have the Sheriff's Department who comes in every year and hands out the animals to our K3, and that is also our kindergarten family luncheon. So we have a full day that day, and then a sing-along the next morning. So, and then finally, I'm not sure I want to bring it up now, but I handed Casey an envelope, and this is from Rotary. Last year, the Lions purchased a new vision and hearing machine for the school. Ours was quite archaic, and the new vision machine is very fast, and our hearing machine was a little bit slower, even being a newer one. And so the Rotary donated the money to purchase another hearing machine so that we can make the process a lot faster. So we have 1 for vision and 2 for hearing now. So thank you to the Rotary.
Don't get the paperwork back.
Yeah, I know, that's all for naught.
That vision machine's something else.
Yeah, it is.
Super fast, and it'll tell you what prescription you need.
Oh, wow.
It's quite fancy, yes.
Well, that's.
We used to borrow white sulfurs, didn't we used to have to when we first started?
We first started.
With the Lions Club.
Yeah, we borrowed theirs, and then the white Lions
Yeah.
purchased this one, yeah. Yeah.
So we've come a long ways.
Give the kindergartner parents maybe a heads up about the Sheriff's Department that day.
I will do so.
I just know rolling up before I'm having 5 deputy cars sitting outside, not knowing.
Good point. I will notify.
a lot of kindergarten parents, new parents coming in, they might want to know
Put a
if it's
blast
okay.
out on social
Yep.
media. for that
Know
activity
everything's
next
okay.
week.
The first time that they handed out the teddy bears, do you remember that? I was like,
Oh,
what's
yeah,
going on?
she didn't know that.
And
that
all
happened
the
every year.
sheriffs were here, and I had a panic attack. Yep, I see what you're saying.
Too, I mean, like, kind of joking before the meeting, but have you step over and run sound and help out all of those.
I guess I always forget the fifth day. I thought we were keep that up on top, so I forgot to update you on fifth day. Part of the fifth day grant is we need to do a community service project as well. And so this last month, all the students made ornaments, and we took them to the Senior Citizen Center, and they actually sang and handed out ornaments to the Senior Citizen Luncheon that day. And so and then we are also working with the food bank to do some community service hours with them and put in some time with them.
Any questions? Mr. Rob?
Our Christmas concerts were the same week. We combined with the high school for the first time, and I think it went well. A few recommendations I would probably have, but overall, I think it was a good format the way we did it this year. The day before, or our last day before Christmas, we will be doing some fun activities with the students in the afternoon. And then over the break, usually, I like to see the teachers get out and stay out. I think they need that break. And I know that our custodial staff does a lot of work on the floors and everything during that time. So hopefully that time can be beneficial for the teachers to kind of get their legs back underneath them and ready to roll as we get toward the second semester. I've visited with a few of you, and I mentioned last month that we've worked with a different instructional coach. It's been a wonderful experience for me, and I think for the teachers too, and I really feel strongly that one of our roles as principals is to help teachers improve and be the best that they can be and help them develop, whether you're a first-year teacher or a veteran teacher. And I know I've learned a lot from the lady that's come in and helped us as far as how to work with teachers and certain prompts and certain things I can do with them. And she's done an excellent job of helping, trying to understand my goals and what I want to accomplish with, as an educational leader, and giving me some good ideas as to how I can, work with teachers in different ways as I walk through classrooms and do things. And it's been really a beneficial thing. It was a good refresher for me. And then our use of those fifth days, the teachers are required to work those PLC days. At first, I was kind of not real sure what we would do on those days and how we would use them. And I can honestly say that those have been wonderful for me. I've been able to spend time with the staff that I just have, in all these years, have never been able to. You usually have a day at the beginning of the year, one somewhere in the middle, and you just, you talk about things, you do things, and you never have a chance to develop ideas or really get into them, because the next day you have might be, the beginning of the next school year, where you're all together and have that time to just work together. And it's been eye-opening for me. I've tried to make them to where the things we're doing are kind of teacher-driven, and we've done some things just identifying where we want to go as a school, almost a little bit of, I guess you call it strategic planning, just on our school level of what we think is important to us and some things we can agree on and what we want to try to be really good at, and it's been interesting and it's been good. And I think the teachers have had some great ideas, and the feedback I've had from them is that they've actually felt like they've been a good use of their time, because they've been able to work with other teachers and come up with ideas and really hash things out that we never would have been able to. And so I'm enjoying those. I think they're very helpful, and I've had a couple teachers comment that they think our school's better for it. And I'm glad, and part of it, I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look through the book that Susie kind of gave out, but I've taken some ideas from there and coming up with what I'm doing with them, and it's been really helpful. If you haven't had a chance to look through that book, it's really has some really good ideas. And one of the core ones for me was, it's not something that everybody knows, but sometimes you have to read it from somebody else before it really hits you on the side of the head. But, identifying the facts and just making sure that you're addressing those. And for us, some of the things, that was the first thing we did as a group, was identify kind of some strengths and weaknesses with things we're doing and basing them on factual evidence that we have, and then deciding how we want to work with those. So it's been really helpful. It's been good. And I look forward. I'm actually really excited about our next day. Our next day is kind of booked already, I think, for some trainings and different things, but I'm excited about the next day I have to work with those teachers. So it's good.
Thank you. Question?
Thanks.
Sarah?
Well, Brad and Christina covered it. No, I'm kidding. I have a few additions, but they did cover a lot. Obviously, we're on the same tracks with a lot of different things. But we know a lot of activities happen on the high school level. We're in full swing. Wrestling, basketball, speech and drama, and cheer are all actively in their seasons right now, and it's already crazy, including between this Friday and next Tuesday, 4 home games. So here we go. It's going to be wild. The wrestling team actually, BHS Wrestling made some history this weekend with our first ever female wrestler getting her first win by pin in the first round. So that was very exciting. It's not every day that a kid can say they're the first one to reach a goal like that or get a task like that. The team was pretty excited. They've had a couple of just really great duels. Coach Hone is doing a really good job as a new coach coming in, and obviously Mr. Odell's there to help. John's there to help a lot too, and they're doing great. Getting good feedback from all of that going on with some new changes there. Same with basketball. They had their first tournament this past weekend. It went well, and just looking forward to getting to our regular swing of regular home games, which is one set of teams. I did post out, it's crazy, probably, and it's just crazy because we have 4 home games all at once, but we're running into an interesting situation with a lot of the teams that we're playing. We're playing some Class Cs, we're playing some Class Bs by the way our schedule and our matchups go. We ourselves don't have a C girls team. Other teams don't have girls at all. So I did roll out like a very specific format for the games and what times they're at. So just if you have kids or you're coming to watch games, it's like, do we note times we're doing and how we're going to have to shift and change, because it's going to be some big changes with trying to coordinate. One day we have 2 entire different teams coming in to fill those boys girls game times, so it'll be a little different. We'll get it all figured out. Mr. Odell's doing a great job trying to keep that entire circus organized, so we're doing the best we can, and we'll roll out any updates and changes as things kind of flex with us as we go. So what else? Let's see. Also, speech and drama had 2 great starts to their meets. We taken first place with the drama teams already, so we have some very talented kids in those areas. PLC stuff, we did have a really great CPR first aid training in November after our November meeting. Very well attended, serviced a big chunk of our staff. The Billings Clinic came in, and the gals come in and done our things before. I believe her first name's Jody. Very nice, super efficient, cut and dried. It went very well, and we got all that done. So we have a huge chunk of our staff that are now recertified in first aid and CPR, and that's always a good thing for us to stay updated on, and we'll get the rest of the staff hopefully done here sometime when we can squeeze that in for the rest of the staff. And I would just completely echo, without going into a lot of detail, literally Brad just said all the things that I would like to say, and, you know, Christina, about the PLC time, been so valuable to sit down and just have that very, focused, quiet time that we can all sit together as a high school staff and really have some deep discussions and deep dives and introspection and reflection on what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what some of the obstacles are and what some of the successes are. And it's been fantastic. I too finally have a pretty good schedule together for this. And obviously very staff driven, as Brad says, because, you know, obviously they have a lot of ideas about what we can do better and what we're doing well, and it's been great. Just loving it. I'm loving that component of the 4-day week for sure as an administrator. I value that time with them. And we did cruise through some testing. We did get the pre-ACT under our belts. I believe about 15 students took that. That's just a practice test for the ACT that comes in the spring. So it's a good thing. I think they just got their scores back this week. And so I'm not, or last week maybe, not 100% sure where they line. But again, practice test, some of them freak out. It's like, calm down, this practice test. Now you know what you're up against and what we may need to do. And obviously the teachers, work with some of that. I know, for example, Mrs. Flynn, her advanced comp class starting in January for the second semester will really help them hone those writing skills and those things that they might need to practice on a little bit more. So, and then our math testing, we did get our first round of math testing completed and all the kids made up. And again, that's just kind of the tool we use at the high school level to kind of see where our students are. We use it for a wide variety of ideas and things to see what's going on with that. We already talked about concerts. They were great. I think it was a much better scenario to combine the middle school and the high school. And then, as Brad said, he and I are coordinating together since we have so many shared staff to work on a last day before school's out activity. The high school always involves the pickleball tournament. The kids love it. And so we will be having a lot of fun with that, sending it off to break and in a good way, in a positive way. We had Shakespeare in the schools today. That's why I threw it on there. I obviously didn't get to stay for the whole thing, but they always just do a fantastic job. And when I popped into the performance today, the kids were just giggling and laughing, and they get it. And it was going really well. So I'm sure the afternoon breakouts and activities likely went well too. I heard very positive things coming back from even high school kids were popping in on some of those things too, and really enjoyed that. And then, like I said, 4 basketball games back, and we'll go into winter break.
And on the road the whole month of January.
I know, the schedule is so bizarre. I'm like, how did this even happen? He's like, I have no idea. It's just, that's
Well,
the
he's
way.
getting the blame for it. So you
I
better-
know. I already told him, do you hate us? Do you hate me? Are you mad at me? He just laughs. No.
Can I add just one thing?
Yep.
That Shakespeare in the schools, yeah, so the middle school, we bring them in every year, and if you've never seen them or a Shakespeare in the Parks performance, I recommend you do it. It's really good. But all of our students in the middle school, they read the play, they've studied it, they've done projects with it, so they understand what's going on, and then they do some breakout things and learn some drama skills. And I'd like to thank Carrie Eichinger she really organized that this year and took over. Mrs. Robershaw did it for many years, and now Carrie did it. It's a lot of work just getting the whole thing organized. So I appreciate her doing that and the teacher doing such a good job teaching it.
Is there any questions for Sherry?
Can I have one more thing? Sorry. I forgot to mention that we have esports started. Mr. Gill has started. We've got that. We had our parent meeting last night, and a lot of positive feedback from the parents. It was great to hear from them. The kids were excited to show them what it was, and Mr. Gill did a great job of sharing what that can look like in the future for those students and what our plans are with it. And so practice will start now. And so if you have a free time between 4 and 6, Monday through Thursday, stop in to the lab and check out, see what they're doing. We are up and running for high school esports. We will get middle school esports going later.
At what point do we get to come in and like yell at the coach? Tell him how he should be doing it from the,
Yeah.
from the
From the
sideline.
bleachers. I
They
like that.
actually have big giant stadiums where the kids are sitting in the middle.
I'll be there.
And you're surrounding them.
It's like the robot.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
so, thank you. The vacancies report is in the packet. As you can see, I feel like we're pretty well staffed, which is exciting right now. And we are going to have adult education up and running late January to February. Classes will start. So those courses and that will come before the board in January. We're excited about that. We're hoping to build more on some of the programs, like high set opportunities for people that maybe want to get their high set, which used to be the GED. We have someone interested in teaching that, so I'm excited about that, as well as some like credentialing type programs, possibly working towards CDL endorsements or those kinds of things that could benefit our community's livelihood, but also possibly be a pipeline for the school district. So, and then of course, some of the great hobbies and skills that those in the community have. So please let us know. Send me an email and we'll get the new gal Audrey's information up on the website. And until then, I'll forward if anybody's interested in a class or interested in teaching a class. Please make sure and let us know. So budget updates and overview. As I said, I have a lot of information to share with you on the budget, and so I'll work with you to see how you want to take care of that in January, so that we have you guys have the information you need for decision making, for baseball, for retirement incentives, for negotiations, for all of these different things that are coming up. I think we need to have an in-depth meeting. But I can tell you that Pam and Casey and I spent quite a bit of time going through our current general fund budget, as well as our grants and other funds, but definitely the general fund budget line by line, and checking our budgeted versus actual to see where we're at in the year. And we only have a couple of areas of concern, and we made plans to address them. Like we have, savings in this area. We've spent only 12% so far in this area, where we're at 78 already in this area. So it's a matter of shuffling, but I think really important to zone in on those and see what's happening. Why, is it because of, like we've had some major bus maintenance or some supply orders for maintenance or those kinds of things. So then just keeping an eye on those things and making plans to make sure we stay on target for the budget. So always appreciate Casey and Pam's expertise in taking the time to go through that with all of us having eyes on it and being on the same page. I echo the concerts were great. I got a lot of compliments and we were packed, and always, also get some feedback and have personal thoughts on what we can do different. And we all talk about it as a team. So keep going in that direction. I'm glad to hear you're reading the book, Brad. No, I'm joking. I know a couple of you are as well, but I will send some information out regarding the book in your homework, your plan, like our plan for what we're going to do with the book, Good to Great, that was passed out as kind of professional development for all of us. So I'll send that out, but you will have the break and all of that to read it. So nothing urgent. I know that everyone's very busy. Yeah. Well, maybe not you guys.
I get Christmas off, but other than that.
I would, if you need me to gift it to you on Audible, you can listen to it in the truck. No.
I was actually going to look for an audiobook for
it. I did want to mention that I just love how this community comes together. And for Christmas, we have a lot, and the holidays, we have a lot of groups helping out. I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm always afraid to list off, but I know we even have student groups that are doing giving trees. I know the Knights of Columbus is excited about helping out. Jerry and I from the Knights of Columbus have become good friends. He calls regularly and he's excited about his team's efforts to come down and pass out dinners for families. There's been donations from alum groups. Christmas Connection is always super helpful to our families and coordinates with us. And we make sure that those homeless foster care and, Miss Bliley and I even have also been talking about the military families just to make sure that we're doing a little something extra for those families and checking in and making sure that all of those folks have what they need over the holidays. So just want to thank everyone for their help with all of that. As far as us being out for the holidays, I know, as you mentioned, thanks for bringing it up, Brad, Jim is going to start waxing the floors. I believe the date is the 22nd. And so then the hope is that nobody would be, back in the building till after the 25th. So the floors can set. So we'll do that. And they have also been asked, and I've seen them making an extra effort to get the gyms ready in the locker rooms for basketball. So they've been hard at work for that and took it upon themselves to decorate.
Mr. Menard was so great. The high school went.
Mr. Menard, yeah, and the people that came for the concerts just loved all the balloons he hung from the ceiling. And just so you guys know, he's been doing that all on his own time with his own money, and it's been really fun to see him get into the school spirit, and we're really thankful for that. I also agree the PLC days have been great, and thank you for inviting me in when I've been able. I think some of these topics, something that I've learned, I know I've, made sure that, and we've negotiated that those are the principals' days, but I think I need to maybe interject and get involved a little bit and get some of these things tackled like we talked about tonight. Like maybe would have been a good chance for me to get more feedback from the teachers on the safety app at the last PLC day, for example. And then the advanced opportunities and transformational learning, we could have maybe had more of those conversations. I know I had a chance to with middle school, but not the high school. So I will work on connecting more with you on those days, but I know you all have planned robust days on those. So just some thought as I heard you talk and as we were thinking. So the transformational learning and the advanced opportunities applications, we're excited about. It was a little bit of a rushed process, and looking back, I think it would have been good to have more group meetings leading up, but I am really excited, and I think that the folks I've talked to so far are excited about where we're at and what is going to come of it. I think, the fact that that'll alleviate the financial responsibilities off of those families, make sure we can run the summer credit recovery program that Ms. Heverin and Brittany did really successfully last year, and not have, potentially we won't have to have families paying fees for those high school courses, and just all those great things that'll come from it for the district. So appreciate everyone pulling together and getting that done and accomplished. The targeted grant, we are implementing. Ms. Hartman's putting the interventions in place for those students that were identified and helped us receive that grant. It's also paying for one of the new paraprofessionals that we have, which helps our budget quite a bit. And we have more opportunities with it for family nights and different things that we're going to be rolling out. We also found out today that we did get the homeless grant. We were awarded the homeless grant, and the cutoff was 30 students. Somehow they came up with that number, and we had 28 homeless students. When we had A and B, we knew of 2 that were homeless the next day. So that's what's really frustrating about these numbers. And then it was just 30 statewide, like any district that had 30. So if we had 30 or Billings had 30, same, you either qualified or didn't qualify. So that was a little bit frustrating. But Manhattan had 8, And Brian let me write them in as as a consortium. So Brian Ayers in Manhattan, we wrote them in as a consortium partner and got that grant. And then OPI called today to ask if we would not mind adding Laurel, because they didn't have enough either, but still really wanted to participate and turn in their paperwork. So we'll see what happens, and we don't know what our award is yet. But we're told that I was invited to the awardee meeting and was told we will get an award letter soon. And that helps us provide more services for students. And so we'll see what we can do with that, depending on our award. And I just want to thank everyone for all their efforts and all the work that's being done. It's been exciting, and there's been a lot going on in the business office, and I appreciate all the efforts to wrap up the year and get ready for taxes and all that fun work as well.
We can talk about the IRS. No takers?
Over there, please.
Are there any questions?
I don't want to drag out any more groups, but I think one other group that might be worth mentioning is just the PTA, since it's just recently been getting started.
Oh, thank you.
They've done, the amount of effort they're starting to put into the school, and like the tree that they had in there with the different stars that you could pick from. I just think they deserve some recognition. They've done, they appear to be very active, so.
Yeah,
Lost and found alone.
Yeah.
The hours that they have saved me with Lost and Found alone.
It's been great.
And providing meals for conferences and different things. Yes, thank you. It's definitely exciting to have a PTA in place and a group that, we need to pull in for our family engagement nights, maybe to help with some ideas in organizing, and our Title I nights and those kinds of things where we're asked to get parent feedback and input, and we always have a hard time getting a crowd. Maybe they can help. So that'll be great. Thank you.
One question or thought I had on a PTA, and you can ask them or whoever, I don't know if they would like a spot on the agenda.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's not monthly, even if it's every couple months, to just come in and, have an opportunity to speak, but, obviously make that happen. Okay, I got a couple last things. Reminder to the board, superintendent evaluations due to me on the 22nd, please, which is a week from this Friday. We talked about quite a bit, but after the first of the year, there's some things we need to think about. Strategic planning is one of them. Some of those policies that we didn't do this time have a direct link to our strategic plan, which at the moment is either outdated or incomplete, depending on how you want to look at it. So I'm going to work on a plan proposal to talk about hopefully in January, but that is something that we as a board will have to move forward with, continuing or starting over, however we want to do that. Negotiations is also something after we have some budget discussion that we will have to begin that process with all of the various entities so that we can get that rolling quicker, sooner this year than we have. Question for Casey on the board binders. Do you want us to give those back to you, or are you just gonna send us the papers 3-punched, we keep our own binder? What was your?
You can do it either way. I was thinking I would just have a binder clip with 3-hole punch, and you can
just grab it.
Use it as you want it.
Okay.
I like that idea. Thank you.
You do like it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's worthwhile trying it anywhere we can save.
How about you guys? Are you okay? They're just becoming large. Binding them takes a good part of the afternoon.
That binding machine made me crazy.
I'd rather not do that if I could get away with it.
Once we get through these policy updates that all kind of came about because of the legislature, we should see a decrease in those here pretty quick, I think.
I wasn't expecting the second round necessarily.
Yeah.
And the next set we have, tonight we did the lighter lift, but there are less next meeting, but they're pretty technical, and some of them might take more than one, like we talked about, that are linked to strategic planning. So, and then I created a Google Doc and I shared it with you guys for the January ideas. Yes, January meeting. There's already that list has already grown a ton. So yeah, we have a lot of things coming up, like calendar and all kinds of things to start thinking about already. So
Yeah, we'll have to sort through that because of course we have to do the actual evaluation that night too. So we'll try and make it so that we're not here.
and I'll get you a detailed self-evaluation soon also that'll give you some information on how I've performed in the past in different areas, how I think I've improved or grown or those kinds of things. So hopefully that'll help you with your own evaluation as well, just to have some history for those of you that haven't been involved before. So.
Taking a step back with the, is everyone okay with me using your kids as a transportation? Okay, all right. Cool. No, not Caitlin.
Just make sure Mackenzie lets me know that she.
Yeah, just say, I sent this with your child.
I found this board back and sitting on my couch the other day, I'm like, how long have you had
I thought, didn't I mention that in the note?
this? It might have, she probably brought it that day.
Okay.
But-
That's funny.
That's great.
Thank you.
Oh, you can't go yet. I still have